Ladies and gentlemen, it's gonna suck. What do you want to bet? The last one sucked. Haven't gotten it out of the plastic yet, as usual. One crazy conspiracy theorist thinks that I'm lying to you about that, but no. It is, in fact, actually in the plastic still. Live unboxing. Here we go. This is gonna suck. What's funny is the first one was the most interesting so far, my opinion. The second one was still engaging, though, because the second one did some good stuff and canonized several aspects of WoW lore, not Warcraft lore, but distinction, that, yeah, exactly, there is this. Because, that was cool. And then 3 was just not great. So, pretty sure we're starting off here. Get into position. But you know what? I need something other than dragon flying. You know, I need the ability to just hover in the air. If only I had the power to do that. Wait. It's not on my bar for... There it is. No, there it is. I have this great thing I can do. Check it out. I can just hover here now. Behold the power of Pandaria. I'll get you a nice shot here. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, let's do it. Chronicles. Lane 4. So yeah, Pandaria, Warlords, Legion, BFA, Shadowlands. This is gonna suck. So, we start on... Ooh, that's weird. What in the world? They're using some kind of cheap cardboard. That's kind of strange. So we start off with a fairly basic shot of the order of existence, which we've talked about several times. It is totally wrong. Retcon, retcon, retcon. This... I like how there's an entire section on Sylvanas in here. That's already a bad sign. That's already a bad sign. Like, I liked Sylvanas as a character. I did. I really did. Until BFA, Sylvanas was one of the better main characters in this series, my honest opinion. And then they were like, hold, hang on, retcons. And retcons are not inherently bad. We've talked about this many times. But a bad retcon, thank you, Lord Atlantean. Always appreciate, and if you want to put that towards up to 3 things in particular, please let me know. Long ago, 7 titans, born of order, wandered the great dark beyond. Together, these godlike beings searched the universe for world souls, essences of incredible power and potential that could one day awaken as titans themselves. When they discovered a world with such potential, they would bring order to the planet and seed it with a myriad of life forms, hoping to call forth the world soul, so that they might nurture it to maturity. One titan, Sargeras, encountered a corrupted world soul tainted by the agents of the Void, the monstrous creatures known as the Old Gods. If the corrupted world soul were allowed to reach maturity, it would give birth to a destructive Void creature of considerable power. Terrified by the implications of this discovery, Sargeras decimated this corrupted world before it could rise in service to the Void. Sargeras returned to the Pantheon of Titans to report his discovery, but was enraged to find his kin opposed to his actions. Aenar, the Lifebinder, reminded her brother of their vow to protect living things. Agramar urged his mentor that there must be another way to defeat the Voidlords, but Sargeras refused to allow the Voidlords a chance at raising their champion. To his mind, a dead universe is better than one consumed by the Void. After spending millennia hunting and locking down the demons of the Twisting Nether away in Mardum, the plane of banishment, Sargeras shattered the prison he'd built and freed them. With their fell magic, he rained destruction on many worlds across the great dark beyond. It was one of these worlds that he was confronted by his former lieutenant, the Titan Agramar. The two met in battle, though Agramar was far outmatched against his mentor's fell magic. He was able to escape and inform the Pantheon of Sargeras' plans. Amon Thul, the leader of the Pantheon... Oh, right, I turned it up. Sorry, I can turn that back down. They've moved the buttons on me. I have moved the buttons on me, Jesus. That's probably a little more appropriate. There we go. Where was I? Aman'Thul, leader of the Titan Pantheon, told Sargeras of their discovery of Azeroth, a slumbering world soul that possessed more potential than the Titans had ever known. This world could awaken as the mightiest Titan and ensure the defeat of the Void Lords. Aman'Thul hoped this news would sway his brother from his campaign of destruction, but Sargeras was unmoved. He met the Pantheon in battle and with his fell powers defeated each one, though he could not know that the magic of his brother, Norgannon, ensured the Titan's spirits survived. Nonetheless, Sargeras and his army of demons, the Burning Legion, set out across the universe to slay any world souls that remained. He would not stop until the entire universe was dead, depriving the Void of its victory. His ultimate target would be the world the Titans believed held so much promise, Azeroth. This planet's slumbering world soul held the potential to decide the fate of the universe. Should Sargeras succeed in his quest to slay Azeroth, all life upon it would perish, and the universe would be irreparably lost to the forces of disorder. Only a unified front of all of Azeroth's people could hope to defeat Sargeras, but factional conflicts had consumed Azeroth's denizens. With things as they stood, it seemed that champions of the world might not even survive long enough to face the Dark Titan. One moment. So you wanted to put towards Spider-Man 1 and 2? What's Spider-Man 1 and 2? Help me out here, Lord Atlantean. What is Spider-Man 1 and 2? Give me some context here. Actually, it makes perfect sense, Crazy Horse. Think about it. Let's see. Okay, we'll come back to that because I don't know what you're referencing. Sorry. Anyways, the events of the last few decades had brought Azeroth itself to the brink of destruction. An army of Sargeras' advanced forces seared their way across the kingdoms of the world. Champions rose from every corner to beat the demons back, only to be faced shortly after by fearsome undead scourge and the horrors of the Lich King. Through great effort and sacrifice, the people brought the undead to similar defeat, but even this victory did not grant Azeroth the peace it so desperately needed. The insidious, not the word I'd use, ruler of the Black Dragonflight, Deathwing the Destroyer, tore through the elemental planes, harnessing the power of the Void to wreak havoc on Azeroth. Environmental disasters shook the world as civilizations great and small were thrown into chaos by rising seas and heaving earthquakes. The remaining dragon aspects expended what remained of their Titan-granted powers to infuse the Dragon Soul, the very weapon Deathwing had once wielded, against them. Only a contingent of Azeroth's greatest champions, led by Thrall, wielding the Dragon Soul, and backed by the Aspects, were able to defeat Deathwing and repel his plans for a final world-ending cataclysm. Thus began the Age of Mortals, where the protection of Azeroth was no longer entrusted to the dragons, but the mortal races who called this place their home. With each crisis, the people of Azeroth managed to band together and eke out an era of victory, but this period of unity seldom endured, because for some reason the writers are morons! As each threat subsided, the nations of Azeroth returned to their factional disputes, waging petty wars upon another to their mutual detriment. 3 decades of intermittent wars did nothing to break this cycle of chaos and unity, but perhaps greater threats were beginning to emerge. Threats would see the factions fight together or die alone. Okay. You get to pick a third thing, Lord Atlantean, if those are the two you're talking about. In her days amongst the living, Sylvanas Windrunner was a leader and champion for her people. She fought valiantly amid the Lich King's scourge invasion of Quel'Thalas, only to be tragically felled by the blade of his Death Knight Arthas Menethil. But Arthas, soon to become the second Lich King, would not let Sylvanas die peacefully. With great delight, he used his powers to raise the vanquished hero as a powerful undead banshee. Under his direct control, Sylvanas was forced to serve the first Lich King's undead army, to massacre the very people who once had been her friends and allies. Hang on a second. This is going to be a moment. I wasn't ready for this. I was like, oh, we'll be starting in Pandaria. And I specifically went to Pandaria, and then the game's like, no. No, we're not starting in Pandaria. There is no Pandaria. Pandaria has been destroyed. Yes, we need the world of Peacecraft. I'd play it. You know I love builder games. I apologize, these are not well sorted. Sylvanas refused to be subjugated for long. After the demon hunter Illidan led his own assault on the Frozen Throne, the Lich King was greatly weakened. As his control over Sylvanas began to waver, she led her fellow Banshees and other undead to revolt and freedom. When the Lich King re-emerged after years of dormancy in the Frozen North, Sylvanas and her Forsaken fought alongside the combined forces of the Horde, the Alliance, the Ebon Blade, and the Argent Crusade in a final charge at Icecrown Citadel. Although Sylvanas was unable to slay the Lich King herself, she was somewhat satisfied with having contributed to his demise. She remained disappointed, however, that Bolvar Fordragon had taken on the Helm of Domination to control the Scourge, believing the helm itself should have been destroyed. How would she know about that? The whole point was it had to stay a secret. Still, her vengeance achieved, Sylvanas saw little left for her in the realm of the living. Intent on finding peace in the next world, she threw herself from the top of Icecrown Citadel. Yeah, that's her suicide attempt. Emphasis on attempt. Thank you, Papa Neeks. Always appreciate you. I'll put that towards contradiction. Patch within. And I'm guessing Mass Effect Andromeda. Not sure if we have any other Andromedas on the list right now. Unfortunately, Sylvanas did not find herself in a contented afterlife alongside family and loved ones she had lost. Instead, her spirit was conducted to the Maw, a torturous wasteland reserved only for the most irredeemable souls in the universe. Which, actually, as an aside, because the mechanisms of death weren't broken yet, and because spirits in the afterlife go through an entire process before they're condemned to the Maw, it makes no sense that she would immediately go to the Maw. Anyways. No, I'm sorry. You established your rules, Blizzard. You established the rules of your afterlife. I hate them, and I try to eject them from canon as thoroughly and often as possible. But you created the mechanisms of the afterlife, not me. As she drifted agonized and alone through the hellscape of the Maw, Sylvanas was rescued by a dark and mysterious entity called the Jailer. I read that short story. No, she wasn't. He claimed to be one of the Eternal Ones, leaders of the myriad realms of the Shadowlands, and told her he had been banished by his kin and bound to the Maw itself. The Jailer showed Sylvanas how her soul had been sent to the Maw unjustly. The spirits of the dead were being conducted to their final rest by a cold and detached Eternal One known as the Arbiter. The Arbiter assigned souls to afterlife, some peaceful, beautiful, and serene, others malignant and terrifying, in an indifferent, dispassionate manner without regard to their own desires. Claiming he had been condemned to an unjust fate as Sylvanas had, the Jailer proposed joining forces. Together they would create an army to wage war on the Eternal Ones. They would destroy the Arbiter and reshape the cycle of life and death into something that was fair. This is an appropriate song for this. That was the cycle of life and death into something that was fair and suitable for every mortal. Although the plan appealed to her sense of justice, Sylvanas rightly suspected this Jailer was hiding something from her. She would need proof of his intentions. To demonstrate the truth of his words, Jailer told her 5 prophecies that would aid her in the days to come. A fiery darkness would return. She would step out of the shadows and lead. A blade would pierce the heart of the world. She would hold the blood from that wound in her hands and sense its power, and she would topple a king and shatter the sky. As one last gesture of his benevolence, the Jailer released Sylvanas from the Maw and agreed to return her to the land of the living. To accompany her, he further sent powerful spirits known as Valkyr. If her life was ever threatened, these Valkyr would valiantly sacrifice themselves in her stead, or she could use a Valkyr to raise a new Forsaken. I'm sorry. No! No! This is not what happened. I'm sorry. There's retcons, and then there's throwing things out the window. While Sylvanas was born back to the mortal realm, despite the value of these gifts, Sylvanas remained skeptical of the Jailer's true intentions. Sure she did. Only time would tell if the Jailer's prophecies held any truth. Perhaps then she would reconsider his proposal. Oh yeah, by the way, the Jailer could just see the frickin' future? Nothing about anything that he is about gives him the ability to just see the future. On one planet, by the way. Whatever. So, yeah, finally, Pandaria, right? Where are we at? Where are we starting? Okay, sure, that's a place we can start. I guess that makes sense. Hey, Duran Grayman, thank you very, very much. As always, appreciate. I will go ahead and jot all of that down. For Hitman 3, Silent Hill 2R, and I have no mouth. Am I doing well? Well, I wish I was dead, but other than that, I'm doing great. Alright, so, let's hop on my mage. I'm not liking pre-patch. I mean, there's not much to talk about. The new changes are pretty much universally awesome. But there's not much to say. Yeah, by the way, I wish I could claim that I came up with the Lobotomy name. But no, that was actually Pax's idea. So he gets full credit for Lobotomy. Okay, let's go. Actually, just go through the portal, which is right here. It would be some years before Sylvanas came to see the truth of the jailer's prophecies. In the meantime, she had plenty of other matters that required her attention. Chaos was brewing within the ranks of the Horde. Dun dun dun, turbo chaos. It's such amazing. Oh my god, it's so chaosy. It's so chaosy that we're going to have to head out here for a second. And then take to the skies! Woo! I've already accepted it at this point, Krazenor, so I can't say no now. But it did contribute to us cracking down even more on less horror games, so that's always a nice thing. War Chief Garrosh Hellscream had taken advantage of the chaos created by the Cataclysm to seize massive swaths of land across the world for the Horde. Many disagreed with the Horde's leader, viewing his actions as warmongering. Stupid might be a better way to put that. Leaders within the Alliance called for his arrest. Even factions within the Horde began to quietly plot against their war chief. The leader of the Darkspear Trolls, Vol'jin, was disgusted by Garrosh's aggression. This is hard to keep track of. These are giant, unformatted paragraphs. My god. He ordered the Darkspear Trolls to depart from the Horde capital of Orgrimmar and return to the home of the Echo Isles, which is actually right over here. Vol'jin himself remained in the capital to keep better tabs on the war chief. Other leaders within the Horde had similar problems with Garrosh's war chief. The Tauren High Chieftain Bane Bloodhoof had never trusted the violent and impulsive orc who had previously killed Bane's own father, Cairn, in Mok Gura, a duel of honor, if you could call it that. Of the other leaders of the Horde, neither Sylvanas of the Forsaken nor Lord Thamar of the Blood Elves approved of Garrosh's conquests. But the orcs were like, yeah, woo, woo! Sorry. Thank you, Justin. Always appreciate. Give me a moment here. I will put that towards the Pixel remasters, Resident Evil block, and Stranger of Paradise. Thank you, as always. None of these leaders, even Vol'jin, openly threatened rebellion against Garrosh himself. The war chief was well known for abruptly silencing any who opposed his reign. He would not hesitate to crush an entire faction to secure his own power. Thus, the Horde's leaders bit their tongues and bided their time, waiting for an opportunity to move against the war chief. No comment. Only one brave orc might have had the courage to face down Garrosh at this early juncture. The last great leader of the Horde, Thrall, citation needed, had left his seat behind to fully dedicate himself to his shamanistic studies. As one who was originally appointed Garrosh's war chief, Thrall had the clout and strength to dethrone him, but Thrall was nowhere to be seen. In the wake of the Cataclysm, Thrall had sequestered himself within the Maelstrom, where Deathwing had emerged. Wielding shamanistic powers, he labored tirelessly along the members of the Earthen Ring to repair the damage dealt to the elemental plane by Deathwing. This was urgent and necessary work, for without it, a second Cataclysm would have certainly followed the first. Unfortunately, it occupied the attention of perhaps the only person in Azeroth who could have challenged Garrosh, except for the player characters, but let's ignore that. The War Chief's remains. The War Chief's remains? The War Chief's reign remained uncontested, so Garrosh pushed his advantage. Horde forces raised the outposts of North Watch Hold, which is actually right up here. Yeah, let's make sure I'm at the right angle. There we go. and pushed towards Theramore Isle, testing the Alliance Kingdom's outer defenses. The Horde and Alliance were on a collision course for the umpteen billionth time, and every single player in the game immediately rolled their eyes and said, ugh, that's not true. There are plenty of players who like the Horde versus Alliance thing. No judgment. I want to judge you. I do, but I don't. I don't actually do it. It's not possible. I judge Tim and Ash. Damn you, Tim and Ash. How could you do this to me? How could you? I actually did, Lord Atlantean, and not a third thing, because you didn't pick a third thing. So now I'm afraid I have to have a chat. You know, I had a whole stream earlier to try and get some of these donations out of the way. Rogue Trader, Pathfinder, Wrath of the Righteous, Xenoblade 3, and a thank you. Thank you to Monash. The leader of Theramore, Lady Jaina Proudmoore, was desperate to defend her city. She called upon all the leaders of the Alliance to send whatever resources they could muster. If they could make a great show of force now, they might intimidate Garrosh into standing down. That's a great idea. Despite a great cost, every member of the Alliance in the Eastern Kingdom sent generals and troops across the Great Sea to aid in Theramore's defense. Even the mages of the Kirin Tor, while ostensibly neutral, sent some of their own. Even the legendary Archmage Ronan. People of Dalaran, avert your gaze to the skies. Oh, sorry. With resources pouring into Theramore from across the globe, it seemed as though the Horde had no chance to successfully lay siege to the city. But in reality, the Alliance was playing right into Garrosh's hands. The one and only tactic he would ever employ, ever. I'm barely joking. The man does not know what the word tactics even means. Scooch this over here. There's the other one. Scooch this over here. The war chief was hoping for a strong response. The Eastern Kingdoms, with all his enemies in one place, he could break the Alliance's military in one fell swoop. That is the only tactic Garrosh ever uses, by the way. And it's actually one of the better written aspects of his character, is that he's got one tactic, and that's it. Get here, crush. Unbeknownst to Theramore's defenders, Garrosh had a massive weapon at the ready, a mana bomb, forged from ancient artifact known as the Focusing Iris. The Iris rightfully belonged to the Blue Dragonflight, but in the aftermath of Deathwing's defeat, Horde agents had stolen it. When the bulk of the Alliance's forces had amassed in Theramore, Hellscream dropped the mana bomb. Nearly everyone in the city was annihilated in an instant. Jaina Proudmoore herself survived when the Archmage Ronan pushed her through a portal to safety, but even Jaina did not escape entirely unscathed. Exposure to the blast turned her hair much sexier. I mean, much silvery white, and her normally cheerful demeanor darkened. The trauma of Theramore's destruction filled her with a ceaseless fury. Just making sure we're getting the shot here. Looks like we're about there. Yeah, there you go. Boom. Okay, Lord Atlantean. Is that on the list? That better be on the list, because if it's not, we're going to have words, Lord Atlantean. With his objective accomplished, Garrosh moved to conquer the entire continent. His navies launched a blockade to surround Kalimdor's major ports. Almost overnight, most of the continent fell to the Horde. Jaina stormed her way back to the Eastern Kingdoms, first to the Kirin Tor, then to the High King Varian Wrynn of Stormwind, and urged the Alliance to launch a full-scale strike against the Horde. But the Alliance leaders unanimously rejected the idea of an immediate retaliatory strike. The loss of Theramore had been devastating to Alliance forces at large. Their kingdoms needed time to heal and regroup before they could consider any sort of offensive, which proves that the Alliance leaders also don't understand tactics, because he only had one mana bomb. This tactic only worked once, and it worked for a very specific reason. It's because Twitface is a hack writer. Minecraft story mode. I believe you, Lord Atlantean. If you don't, pinky. Alright. Jaina would not be denied her vengeance. She privately returned to Kalimdor to retrieve the Focusing Iris and hoped to use it to prepare a weapon of her own, many times the might of the mana bomb. Wielding arcane magic, she used it to enhance her own abilities, manifesting water elementals and binding them to her will from Fairy Island, which is actually right up there. At her command, they would launch a tidal wave large enough to cover the Horde capital of Orgrimmar in water. The blood of her slain subjects would be repaid with the demise of all of Orgrimmar's inhabitants. After receiving a vision from the elements warning of the looming disaster, Thrall left the Maelstrom behind to seek its source. He located Jaina just as she was prepared to use the focusing iris. Thrall did not condone the actions of Garrosh, but he couldn't stand by and let Jaina massacre a city. Their words came to blows, and Jaina unleashed her elemental wave, and Thrall bent the winds to keep it back. The two traded spells, but keeping the tide at bay while defending himself took its toll on Thrall. Jaina came within moments of taking the shaman's life, but in the end, no blood was spilled. Calicos, her one true love, arrived and helped Thrall broker peace with Jaina, who abandoned her plot. Only later did she realize her tidal wave would have meant certain defeat for herself and her allies in the long run. The bulk of the Alliance's navy had been assembling in the waters around Orgrimmar, prodding the city's defenses, seeking a way to break the Horde's naval blockade. Every person, both Horde and Alliance, would have been destroyed in the assault. Rather than use her water elementals to drown Orgrimmar, Jaina redirected them to attack the Krakens the Horde had summoned to harry the Alliance fleet. Her actions saved the Alliance fleet, allowing her forces to make land on Kalimdor. Shortly thereafter, soldiers of the Alliance managed to retake one of their strongholds, the Northwatch Hold, which you can't see from here, but it's right there. It's right in front of us. Returning to the Eastern Kingdoms, her heroism and restraint in the face of such devastating loss won her the respect of many of her peers and fulfilled a prophecy surrounding the future leadership of the Kirin Tor. Prophecies. As such, the Kirin Tor promoted Jaina to the rank of Archmage and the head of the Council of Six. That'll last one whole expansion. Two whole expansions. By accepting her position, she took the seat of Ronan, the very man who had saved her life not long ago. As the new head of the council, she was forced to take an officially neutral stance on the war. However, in private, she continued to voice opposition to the Horde. There would be no peace on Azeroth while Garrosh remained war chief. Future conflict was inevitable. Soon, the growing tide of war would draw on people long hidden from the rest of the world. Thank you very, very much, Paranoid Android. As always, I will jot that down. The very things, which include Alpha Centauri, Deus Ex Human Revolution, and the Resident Evil Block. Thousands, billions, trillions, grillions years ago. Billions of trillions of grillions of years ago. Speaking of which, we've only had one mortal so far. So, the grillions of trillions of years ago, I went out to get cupcakes. And while I was there, I discovered the truth of the cupcake agenda. I realized that the cupcakes were plotting against me. This is a weird place to start this story. What is going on with this? Why are they sharing this part? God, you know, if I may, I spent a huge amount of time and effort on the specific structure of the World of Warcraft series so that I could tell the story in ways that I felt would be easiest to digest and would make the most sense. Because if you just start talking about anything in WoW, it's like, okay, hang on. Give me a few hours to give you the preface you need to know in order to then be able to discuss everything after that, right? Because there's just so much lore. This is such a dense setting. So there needs to be a structure to it. For example, one of the things I would do is I would establish a whole bunch of lines here, and then I would connect these two, and then I connect these two, and then I connect these two. And I think about it like an org chart, right? Each subsequent episode, after a certain point, was connecting more and more bits until, like, you had 5, 6, or 10, or 20 different story ideas all combining, right? That was the goal. But here we're just going to jump into the Throne of Thunder. Thousands of years ago, when the Titans first visited Azeroth, they found the planet uncorrupted but under siege by 4 powerful void beings. To prevent the old gods from spreading their darkness... Who wrote this? Who actually wrote this? Matt Burns, Matt Forbeck, Marty Forbeck, and Christy Golden, who has since had her ass fired from this, as she should be. To save Azeroth, Aman'Thul personally tore Y'Shaarj from the very face of the world. While this did defeat the old god, it irreparably scarred the land. Pieces of Y'Shaarj's corpse... Why are you opening with the Shaw? Pieces of Y'Shaarj's corpse fell back down to the surface below and wrought havoc wherever they landed. The most powerful of these pieces, like Y'Shaarj's heart, were found and buried deep underground by the Keepers, but other fragments incorporated themselves into features of the planet itself. Over centuries, new civilizations formed atop one of those pieces known as Pandaria. The Mogu stone servants of Ra, agreed to guard Pandaria against further corruption. However, as centuries wore on, defilement set into motion long ago by another old god, Yogg-Saron, began to affect the Mogu. Over generations, the Curse of Flesh turned their Titan-forged bodies of mechanized stone to soft mortal bodies of bone and sinew. But the Mogu were not alone in Pandaria. Other people existed along them. The Mantid, the Pandaren, the Hosen, and the Jinyu. You missed one there. Actually missed two, but we'll ignore that. These civilizations remained mostly at peace as the Mogu warred for many, many years in a brutal era known as the Age of 100 Kings. However, eventually a powerful conqueror emerged amongst the Mogu called Lei Shen. You thought I was kidding. We're just jumping right into the Thunder King here. He sought to continue the work of the Titans. He struck and incapacitated Highkeeper Ra. Are you going to explain why he did that? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Are you going to go into why? Because it's actually kind of a big frickety deal. Do you explain why he went against his own god? Hi, Evo. Okay, so there's the Divine Bell. There's the Black Prince. Here we go. Okay. Then there's the Vol'jin book, which wasn't actually all that good. I don't recommend it. Oh my god. Lei Shen, the Thunder King, gets a page and a half. Okay. For those of you who don't understand, the Thunder King is kind of a big deal in the overall history of the entire world. Lei Shen has had a massive impact on multiple cultures and civilizations, and is a huge crux to Pandaria in particular. He's a fulcrum point of a lot of the story element here. Yeah, sure. Pandaria gets... Give me one moment. Hang on. We're up to the Siege of Orgrimmar. 40... Hang on. 34 pages. This is a 220 some odd page book. I don't even. Thank you very much, Spartan. Oh my god. Like, thank you, Renegade Devi. Remember, you can pick 3 things, not just one. Always appreciate you. Thank you. Give me one moment here. Devi. Jesus Christ. Oh god, you know what? Hang on. So Spartan is for Dead Space R, Homeworld, Block, and Madrid Prime Hunters. I can't believe I let you convince me to put that on the list. It's probably watch. I'm gonna love the game. What do you want to bet? And then that's going to Star Ocean 2R. Okay, hang on. I'm gonna look at something here. So Warlords gets about 42 pages based on this. Legion gets about 50. BFA gets about 50. Shadowlands gets like 50. I guess that's about average. But just... I don't know, man. Feels like a weird spread. Alright, whatever. I'm gonna let it go. So there's this dude named Lei Shen. If you want to know more, go watch my video on it. It's even shorter than this. Okay, so. You know, I'm just going to tell you, screw the book. So here's the reason, because this is a huge plot point. The reason the Highkeeper, the reason the Mogu freaked out and became the Age of 100 Kings and all that is because they lacked leadership. The reason they lacked leadership is because their direct overseer, Highkeeper Ra, just went into his room and went quiet. Just stopped talking, stopped reacting to anybody. The reason Highkeeper Ra did that is because the freaking Titans were dead. And he knew that. And so in his mind, it was pointless. Everything was done. It's actually a really good character point and plot point. It makes perfect sense. It's in the game. This isn't even something from the freaking books. This is in the game. Ra's a freaking optional boss in the Throne of Thunder. So Ra went into despair. And remember, the sound of despair is silence. When you're not even angry about it. When you're not even pissed about it anymore. When you just accept it. Because you are in true despair. You cannot process anymore. So Ra was just sitting there despairing. And Lei Shen, who was the son of some particular warlord, went to go after him. And was like, rawr! And, decided to try and smack some sense into him. Ra finally reacted to him for the first time and showed Lei Shen the truth. That the Titans were dead. Now, Ra expected that would break Lei Shen like it broke him. Instead, it galvanized him and said, oh, well, now we've got to do what the gods did. We've got to do what the Titans did. So Lei Shen beat Ra's ass, claimed his power, chained him under the throne, and started going around basically trying to act like the Keepers now, okay? So, anyways, skipping over that massive plot point of substantial significance. Yeah. What doubly frustrates me is it's a good writing point in Warcraft. Like, Warcraft has loose continuity, but they had that planned. They had that ready to go in the game. It was there. You remember Raytheon's speech? What do you think he's referencing? I have no idea, and at this point, I don't care, Spartan. If you're going to rehash the entirety of Cataclysm, when you already had an entire book about Cataclysm, then you can spend one paragraph explaining one of the biggest plot points in the entire setting. This is a plot point that covers from prehistory to Wrath to Pandaria to Legion. Thank you, Jim Ryder, for the sub. I will put that towards FF16. Pokemon Violet. Stranger of Paradise. And thank you, Catabo, very, very much. I'll put that towards WoW Thin. And FF14 Patch Trail. And a third thing, if you want to pick it. I don't know what you're referencing. I'm sorry, Elizar. Okay, so, whatever. Moving on. Moving on. Just to make this clear for just a second, the paragraph, this is like a sentence, okay? That whole, hang on, Magister's interrupted me. Damn it, why, Magister, why, no? It's okay. BRPG block, WoW, War Within, and WoW, Patch Within. You got it. Thank you again, Magister, very, very much. All right, so check this out. This is what's actually in the book. You ready for this? Lei Shen struck and incapacitated High Keeper Ra, imprisoning him beneath his throne, claiming the Keeper's mighty powers for himself. As the fearsome Thunder King, Lei Shen callously subjugated the other races of Pandaria, forcing them to serve the Mogu. That's kind of it. That sentence, that's it. That's it. So, moving on! I'm sorry to keep hammering this point, but I'm trying to come up with an analogy, but I don't have an analogy. I don't need an analogy. This is a dominant plot point that is absolutely relevant to, again, to Warcraft as a whole, to Wrath, to Pandaria, and to Legion. The central plot, the primary plot of Legion is dealing with Lei Shen's motives there, is dealing with what happened to the Titans and Ra. And then they just walk over it. I'm not saying you have to go in full depth detail the whole thing again, but if you're gonna rehash anything, maybe rehash the thing that freaking matters. Thank you, Lord Harriman, very, very much. I will go ahead and put that towards Ratchet and Clank block, Disgaea, and the Awful block. Much appreciate, thank you. For all his powers, Lei Shen's ambitions ensured his defeat. He sought to take control of the Titan machinery within Uldum, specifically the Forge of Origination, a super weapon that can enable Lei Shen to reshape Azeroth in any way he sees fit. He assembled a massive army of Mogu to achieve his aim. Seeing they were outmatched, the Tol'vir, the Guardians of Uldum, turned the Forge of Origination on Lei Shen and his forces. The Titan's powerful machinery scoured the land around the facility, instantly killing every creature on the surface, including the Tol'vir defenders themselves. With Lei Shen's passing, the Pandaria monks led the races of Pandaria in rebellion, and the Mogu Empire crumbled. After a long and bloody war, they overthrew their oppressors and established a new order in Pandaria. I don't know what a Mongu is, Elizar. I'm sorry. Or a Moongu. Also, no, it did not, Venters. A somewhat peaceful... Oh, who are the Mogu? Oh, Jesus Christ. Go watch my Warcraft episode on the Krasarang Wilds. That's where I discuss them. If you're wondering why I discuss them, it's because I understand literary structure. The Mogu barely show up here in this first zone, the Jade Forest. The Jade Forest is all about the Horde, the Alliance, the Pandarians, and the increasing conflict with the Shah. The second zone you can go to is actually debatable, because when you leave this zone, you go down to here. Whoop, here, not there. Sorry. Ah! Hang on. Sorry, that's my fault. You go right here, okay? And when you're right here, you can either go down into the Krasarang Wilds or this way. And there's actually a vector quest going in both directions. And I'm apparently blocking it up here. There. I know you can see up here, right? So you can go down into the Krasarang Wilds, or you can go over here into the Valley of the Four Winds. Now, you can do either. Both zones are next, but narratively it flows better to the Crow of the Krasarang first. So when you go down to the Krasarang Wilds, what do you encounter down there? Oh, that's right, the Mogu. This is the first zone which really deals with the Mogu, which actually has the Mogu being a relevant plot point. We learn a little bit about their history, a little bit about their people, a little bit about what they are. Remember, a lot of them around here are still stone. And we learn a little bit about how they operate. So that's a whole thing down here. This is the best part to introduce and discuss the Mogu. That's why I did it that way. Then I followed through with the Valley of the Four Winds, which happens to include the conclusory story arc of the first three zones. If you're paying attention, Pandaria is actually very well structured narratively. It's going to get some positive when I get there. It's Jade Forest, Krasarang, Valley of the Four Winds, and then the battle at the wall, the battle at Stoneplow, right? Boom, 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 conclusion. Then, if you hit the wrong button, sorry, then you do Kunlai, Townlong, Dread Wastes, and Dread Wastes once again has a conclusory story arc regarding the Class of S and the Heart of Fear, which actually technically concludes over here at the raid, but you get the point. Boom, 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 whoosh. Boom, 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 whoosh. There's a structure there. There's a logical, sense-making, good flow, narrative awesomeness to Pandaria that's actually rare in WoW, to be quite honest with you. And yeah, then you switch to the Throne of Thunder, and yeah, the Throne of Thunder concludes Pandaria, whereas the HVA concludes in the Krasarang Wilds again, but also in Domination Point as well as the Siege of Orgrimmar. Oh yeah, and of course the Vale of Eternal Blossoms, which is functionally where the overall story arc ends, right here. I mean, there's a reason the Siege of Orgrimmar raid starts here. One moment, please. I know, right? Nero says this is getting silly. Like, as I said earlier, Chronicles 1 is very good. Chronicles 2 was still interesting. Chronicles 3 was pretty bad. And so far, I am not impressed with Chronicles 4. Thank you, Caspian, very much. I will jot that down from Homeworld block. The Mario and Luigi block. And Metal Gear Solid 2. And all of my YouTube viewers hating me for constantly interrupting the reading. Yeah, you notice they completely skip over the fact that the Grummels are one of the most crucial elements for beating the Mogu. Moving on. A somewhat peaceful age passed, and a Pandaren named Xiao Hao became Pandaria's new emperor. This period of harmony was shattered, however, when the demons of the Burning Legion began their first encroachments upon Azeroth during the War of the Ancients. Xiao Hao feared for his people and harbored doubts about their future. The lingering powers of the old gods attached themselves to the Emperor's feelings. They empowered and gave form to these negative emotions, allowing them to manifest as beings called the Sha. Overwhelmed by the trial set before him, Xiao Hao traveled seeking wisdom from Yulon and the Jade Serpent, who set him on a great journey to purge himself of negative emotions. After many long and grueling battles, Xiao Hao defeated the Sha, though found he could not be permanently rid of them. So long as the people of Pandaria possessed negative emotion, the evil entities would eventually return. Rather than endlessly fight and kill Sha, Xiao Hao locked away the evil beings underground, beneath the temples of Pandaria's local deities, the August Celestials, who had themselves helped Xiao Hao conquer his emotions. He set the Shadow Pawn, an order of monks Xiao Hao had founded, to stand guard over their prisons. There was no better place to keep the Sha under their watchful eyes. Having purged himself of the evil within his heart, he became one of the Pandaria himself. He became a Loa. As his physical form disappeared, he broke the land from the continent of Kalimdor to ensure the protection of his people, cloaked Pandaria in thick mists, hiding it away from the rest of the world and the dangers that lurked there. For more than 10,000 years, the people of Pandaria had minimal contact with the outside world. In all that time, a few Pandaren dared to venture away from their homeland, and these wandering explorers formed a community atop the back of a great sea turtle called Shenzhen Zhu and set sail across the world. Thank you, Ajunix. Always appreciate the subs. Give me a moment. I will try to jot that down really quick here. Give me just a second. That's going for Persona 4G. Grim, Fandango, and DBZ Kakarot. DBZ Kakarot. So then we have a picture of Pandaria. It's fine. Yeah, no Brofists. Okay, Brofist. But only one. Gradually, the people of the Wandering Isle visited Pandaria less and less, and they lost touch of their relatives on the mainland. It took the destructive power of the Cataclysm to draw them back to their ancestral home. In the wake of the destruction of Theramore and tensions around Orgrimmar, naval engagements between the Horde and the Alliance raged across the southern seas. As their armies drifted further and further south, they began to encroach upon the course Shenzhen Zhu swam. It was only a matter of time before one faction or another discovered the Wandering Isle. In the end, representatives of both the Horde and the Alliance would arrive on the Isle simultaneously. The Skyseeker, an Alliance gunship carrying Horde prisoners, became caught in the thick mists around Pandaria and crashed on Shenzhen Zhu. Taking advantage of the chaos, the prisoners escaped and ventured into the Wandering Isle. Realizing that something was wrong with Shenzhen Zhu, the Pandaren in the Isle spoke with the Great Turtle and sought out the source of his pain. In doing so, they encountered both Horde and Alliance survivors who soon entered into conflict. Two groups of Pandaren formed around factions. One was led by a young Pandaren named Asa Cloudsinger, who partnered with the Alliance. She followed Tushui, which placed a high value on vigilant training and unflappable moral conviction, traits she saw mirrored in the Alliance's leaders. Apparently she never met Moira. The other Pandaren contingent followed a philosophy known as the Huozhen, and followed along with the Horde. These Horde sympathizers found a leader in Isa's compatriot, G. Firepaw. G was a powerful warrior who valued honor, passion, and action above all else. I'm going to ignore that. If you remember, when I was doing the Warcraft, you've watched the Warcraft series, right? Haven't launched the Warcraft series? That's okay. When I was doing this section on Pandaria, I made it a point. I was very, very, very specific with my word choice about the differences between the Tushui and the Huozhen, because both of them actually practice more or less the same policy, just in a slightly different expression. Hence why I wanted to get nuanced with my language. Instead of, oh, I don't know, diligent training and unflappable moral conviction, that's the Alliance, or honor, passion, and action above all else, that's the Horde. Regardless of their leanings, all remained concerned for Shenzhen Su, who had been badly injured by the crash of the Skyseeker. Worse yet, the Great Turtle was beginning to drift towards the maelstrom at the center of the Great Sea. Sorry. If nothing was done, the Isle and everyone on it would be drowned in a raging torrent. The factions set aside their differences for a time to help the Great Turtle. Sympathetic members of both Horde and Alliance returned to the remnants of the Skyseeker to agree on a plan, but while Asa carefully considered how to remove the debris, G took decisive action. He and his allies detonated the remaining portion of the ship. This detonation did remove the debris, but worsened the injury. Now the turtle was dying. People of the Isle would be forced to flee their homes unless Shenzhen Zu could be healed. Heroes from both factions protected Horde Druids and Alliance Priests while they banded together to heal the turtle. In the end, both factions' perspectives were needed to accomplish their shared desire, although their philosophies clashed often in the process. G and Asa parted ways, accompanying their allies back to the Horde Alliance capitals to pledge their respective allegiances and not be seen again until the frickin' raid. I just... In the days before the coming of the Skyseeker, a young Pandarian from the Wandering Isle named Lily Stormstout embarked on her own adventure. A local fisherman in her community had discovered a mystical artifact called the Pearl of Pandaria. When Lily touched it, she experienced visions of a faraway land cloaked in mists. Lily intuited that the land she saw in her vision was Pandaria and became convinced the pearl was the key to rediscovering the Pandarians' long-lost home. Against the wishes of her father, Lily took a boat and set out from the Wandering Isle to search for Pandaria. Her uncle, Chen, feared for her safety and pursued her. After a long journey across southern seas, Lily and Chen had Pandaria in their sights, but at the last moment a violent storm blew them off course and Lily was thrown overboard. The pair of the crew were rescued from certain death by two scouting warships, one from the Horde, one from the Alliance. The wandering Pandaren thought they were safe, but as soon as the storm passed, the rival ships engaged in battle. Caught up in the sailors' factional hatreds, the ships took significant damage and sank. Lily and Chen barely escaped the battle alive. The two Pandaren were not far from their ancestral home anymore. Their boat soon washed up on its shores, but even though they had finally reached their intended destination, Lily and Chen were filled with a deep unease. The naval war between the Alliance and the Horde was continuing to push further south, and Pandaria would not remain hidden much longer. The mists had begun to part, and great change would soon follow. Get some... This is really hard to do. The biggest thing I hate about the Warcraft Chronicles books? Legitimately. They're huge. Do you know how uncomfortable this is to hold, to read? Like, it's like... Anyways. The first Alliance vessels arrived not long after Lily and Chen, a fleet of warships led by Admiral Taylor. Accompanied by Prince Anduin Rin of Stormwind, who had been set off course by the mists surrounding Pandaria, wrecked upon the shores of the Jade Forest. With no way to contact the rest of the Alliance fleet, Taylor, Anduin, and their allies began setting up camps throughout the wooded region. The disappearance of the prince... There's our fleet down there, by the way. The disappearance of the prince was publicly kept quiet, although it caused Anduin's father, the High King Varian Rin, great concern. To find his son, Varian launched a small elite force into the heart of Pandaria. He deployed the Sky Admiral Rogers and her SIS-7 agents aboard the Skyfire to track down both Taylor and Anduin. Looks like I'm actually in the wrong timeline because I don't see anything but Horde stuff here. But yeah, this is where the Alliance landed, right up here. Right up here. Here. There you go. Word of this Alliance expedition quickly spread to the Horde. In response, Garrosh ordered his most trusted general, an orc named Nazgrim, who is slightly more of a character than Taylor. Although, am I the only one who's sad that Taylor and Nazgrim never really had much of a, like, anything together? They fought each other, like, right over there. And then they meet each other up in Kun Lai, and that's it. Like, they don't do anything together. Anyways, whatever. Moving on. Garrosh ordered Nazgrim to launch a similar expedition. Soon enough, both factions had established footholds in the Jade Forest. The battles between their various holdings were intense, And as the Shah spurred on the negative emotions of the warriors, the leaders of both forces found themselves consumed by anger and hatred, who are actually up north, attacking each other with reckless abandon. No, I'm sorry, book. No, this is doubt. The Jade Forest's Shah is doubt. That's even in the game. No, I don't mean the boss fight. I mean, when they talk about what's happening, they're freaking out because of how much doubt they're being consumed by. Oh my god, I can't do. What's he gonna do? He's gonna tell me, I'm screwed. Like, doubt is what's covering them. All 4 major characters that get consumed by doubt. Sorry. It's a book called The Warcraft Chronicles Volume 4, period. And that's all you get. The growing influence of the Shah drew the attention of the Pandarian warrior named Taranzu. Kind of an asshole, but he's cool. The leader of the Shadow Pan for 10,000 years. Sorry. The Shadow Pan had protected Pandaria's people, fighting the influence of the Shah and any other force that threatened their peace. Oh, trust me, Goldie, I don't need this book to blame Goldie. She's a crap writer. I've read her crap. It's drivel. I'm not blaming her for this. Remember, the last book had issues, too. She's a crap writer, though. With the help of his fellow Shadow Pan, Taranzu met with the leaders of both factions and wove a spell to free them of the influence of the Shah. With his parting words... Sorry, maybe you should save them for yourself, buddy. With his parting words, he warned the Horde and Alliance leaders of dire consequences their war might bring, for their negative emotions would only amplify the Shah's power. Over time, the Shah would grow strong enough to destroy all who lived in Pandaria. The Shadow Pan and the other Pandaren would not contribute to this self-destructive war. Now, the exact word he used was blood feud. Neither side heeded the Shadow Pan's words. Instead, they sought allies among the other people of Pandaria. The Horde found kindred spirits... just up there, actually, with the Hosen, whose culture centered around hunting and pursuit of one's passions. No, the Hosen's culture centers around the fact that they never leave adolescence, thanks to a biological quirk of their species. Similarly, the Alliance found friends amongst the wise and grounded Jinyu, who are actually like right... Oh, where am I? Right over there, through those forests up there. Who reside in the water. They're not even saying anything. They're just wise and grounded. No, the Jinyu are pretty bloodthirsty, actually. Have you done these quests? Both factions rapidly accumulated power and allies in the region, but unbeknownst to the Alliance, the Horde had an ace up their sleeve. Prince Anduin Rin had wandered far from the site of his initial shipwreck. In fact, he wandered close to contested territory. Right up there, actually. Anduin was far from the only person who had lost their way with the initial chaos. In their rush for power, large swaths of Horde and Alliance forces were separated from their commanders. No longer tied down to the war, these wandering champions... Oh, it's us! Hey, it's us! Wait, in our rush for power? What? I don't remember rushing for power. Oh, God, yeah, look at this. Can't wait to claim all the power of this beautiful land. It's going to be mine. It's all mine. I got to get that loot. It's just, gotta rush. Gotta rush to get the loot. Who wrote this? In their rush for power, the player characters, let's call that what it is, made allies amongst Pandaria's locals. Okay, I'm sorry. The real reason that I love this so much is it's a huge thematic plot point that so many of the initial quests in Pandaria are really low tier, right? This town I'm showing off right here, I don't remember the name of it, but this town right here, you know what quests you get here? That guy wants some jade. Up there is some people who want you to find things to help them paint more. Down here is someone who's like, his big deal is he's worried about people being endangered by some of the local wildlife. Like, this is bottom tier stuff, which is perfect. That's exactly what we needed after the Cataclysm. We needed that reset, right? Pacing was good here. It was like, brought everything nice and low tier. And that was like the overwhelming majority of all of these quests here and also up at the Tian Monastery, where one of our quests involves feasting. One of the quests involves going and picking, like, dye panels for people for paint. One of the quests involves going and getting a giant freaking thing of soup. That was awesome! But the point is, thematically and plot-wise, it was such a huge shift down in scale, in tone, in tempo, so that we could have a breather and sort of like start to recover from the events of the Cataclysm. But apparently we were just consumed by our lust for power. Hi, Corey Fox. I'm sorry, you caught me in the middle of a rant. Because apparently this was written by monkeys. No, I don't mean the Hosen. That would be funny. So then the Alliance, they found those tall bookers, and they ooked them in the duka. I needed those feasts. I needed 2 feasts to fuel my lust for power. What? I'm sorry. So I'm just gonna read through this one more time. I apologize. In their rush for power, large swaths of Horde... I'm sorry. Large swaths of Horde and Alliance forces... I'm sorry. It's wrong twice. It's wrong twice. Okay, I'm sorry. I hate to keep pointing out how hilariously bad this is. Let me put in a bookmark here. One of the other major plot points of Pandaria is that we're detached from the main forces of the Horde and Alliance. We are on our own. This army they're talking about is like 20 people. The huge swaths of it, couple dozen. That's a plot point, right? And that's being generous. It's probably closer to 13 if we're being honest with ourselves. Although we've talked about this before. It's debated if there's, in lore, if there's one of each class or if there's one of each spec. Both of those are actually possible. But even if we're really being generous, if each spec is represented by an individual in lore, that's not a lot of people. And it's split, too, amongst the Horde and Alliance, because there's an equal number of Horde and Alliance players in lore. And yeah, I was about to say, this is doubly interesting. As you saw, because I have 6 Pandaria Remix characters, this is all kind of recent on my mind. Never mind the fact that it's me, and of course I know Warcraft lore. Jesus Christ. Okay, sorry. So it's wrong twice. Lusts for power, and huge swaths of our forces, all like 5 of us. Oh my god. Okay. Moving on. It's just... I'm okay. No longer tied down to the war, these wandering champions made allies among Pandarian locals. Hey, a true sentence. It was through these locals that the heroes first heard the tale of the Serpent's Heart. Okay, perfect. We can start talking about... We can't actually see it because I'm in the present here, but it's over there. It's that broken thing. Don't worry about it. So what's the Serpent's Heart, right? Like, tell me, book. Tell me what the Serpent's Heart is. I'm ready for this. Here we go. So just scooch it, like, right there. A little bit more down. It's really hard to, like, aim this so that it's, like, right up there, you know? It really does, Mr. Ed. Long ago, in the time of Lei Shen... Oh, you remember him now. The great Jade Serpent Yulon became a rare spark of hope for the Pandaren. As one of the August Celestials, she could not stand by and watch the Pandaren toil and suffer beneath the crushing weight of the Mogu Empire. She sought to empower the Pandaren by spreading wisdom to them. Some risked their very lives by abandoning their work in pursuit of knowledge. So strong was her influence that Yulon's actions drew the attention of the brutal Lei Shen. For galvanizing his slaves against him, he reached out to the skies, plucked a bolt of lightning, and struck the serpent, sending her crashing into the jade forest down below. There the Pandaren found her, wounded and dying, and with my niece. What am I looking at? Is that new? That is new.
Yeah, I got it.
Oh my god. Watch your feet. There's a fork.
I know.
Okay, just making sure you saw it. That is super cute. It is super cute. Okay, bye. There the Pandaran found her, wounded and dying. She was moved to a place of safety, a place where the Pandaran worshipped the august celestials. Touched by their devotion, Yulon imbued the chamber with celestial magic and bade the Pandaran build a statue in her likeness. For 100 years they labored, and the moment their work finished, Yulon died. Yet as her life essence entered the statue, she was reborn. Yulon was not forever healed by this action alone, however. Every 100 years, her life force had to be renewed by the people of Pandaria, completing the same ritual. Thus, once every century, the Pandaren built a great jade statue in the likeness of Yulon at the sacred temple called the Serpent's Heart. Every time her current form began to die, Yulon transferred her essence into the statue and was renewed. This process of rejuvenation came with many risks. If the Pandaren failed to complete the effigy in time, her spirit would be lost forever. Yulon's unyielding faith in the Pandaren assuaged any doubts. She believed firmly the Pandaren would never fail to care for her. Hold up. I'm sorry. Hold up. So, it doesn't say it outright, but this is positing the idea that the reason Yulon needs a new body, let's call it what it is, every 100 years, is because of the fact that she was so injured by Lei Shen. Which I'd like to believe, but I totally don't. And I talk up Lei Shen quite a bit. So, A, huh? B, yeah, I was about to say, what happens to her previous body every time she dies? That's every 100 years. I know that sounds like a long period of time, and that's because it frickin' is. But it's been a while since the time of Lei Shen. Remember, Lei Shen was before the War of the Ancients, before the Legion showed up. So that's 10,000 plus years. Also, and I hate to point this out, but, well, I already showed it off on camera. You see that down there? Because that's the broken statue. And she's still around now. Yeah, also, that's another thing. None of the other Celestials ever had to do this rebirth thing. They're fine. So, huh? This is a plot point that comes out of nowhere and makes no sense, and makes things worse. Now, that's golden right there. The Yulon had not considered the statue could be wrested away from the hands of her beloved Pandaren. The latest carving was on the verge of completion when the Horde Alliance stormed through the Jade Forest and over the Serpent's Heart. In their fighting, they toppled the statue. No, we didn't. Triggering further hatred, nope, and despair, nope, in the Pandaren. Did you watch that cutscene? It's a good cutscene. It's a good cutscene. Unbeknownst to the Horde and Alliance, the statue held another important purpose. It protected the seal that bound the Shah of Doubt. When the statue was destroyed... Oh, okay, no, that makes even less sense. Because, hang on. So, like, the statue... Yeah, first, yeah, despair is Krasarang, hatred is in Kunlai, first of all. But second of all, and that's not just, like, where you fight them. Like, narratively, in-universe, that's where they're chained, right? That's where they're locked away. They're not all right here. But here's the thing. If the statue is the seal on Doubt, what were they doing before then? How was Doubt staying sealed before that? Remember, timeline, okay? So, Yasharaj's death was way, 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 way back. And then the Shah, okay? And then the Mogu. Remember, we know the Mogu actually utilized the Shah. The Divine Bell actually goes into that a little bit as part of that quest chain in 5.1. So, what was keeping Doubt sealed back then, if anything? I guess the answer is possibly nothing. But then that brings up a whole other question of exactly when, like... I'm sorry, I'm breaking at how little sense this makes. Let's get to the other thing. What's the other problem? Every time the statue is consumed by Yulon to create a new body, what becomes the new seal? Right? Because all of a sudden, the seal's gone, and Doubt is released. Right? Every time, every 100 years, like clockwork. If the statue's the seal. Now I know what you're going to say. Oh, Yulon's the seal. Okay, then why did Doubt get out this time? If you've seen this cutscene, you know that what actually happens is the amount of fighting triggers the explosion of negative energy, which feeds Doubt, which causes Doubt to erupt, and that's what destroys the statue. We didn't break the statue releasing Doubt. We empowered Doubt breaking the statue. With the statue destroyed and a torrent of negative emotion brewing in the hearts of the combatants, the Shah broke free of its prison and later fled to claim the Temple of the Jade Serpent, that's right over there, for its own. Fortunately, some of the wandering champions who heard reports of this happening, you know, the ones who were, like, physically right over there, right at that building, right there, in the middle of the screen. We were right there. Some of the wandering champions who heard reports of this happening took it upon themselves to defeat the Shah and set right what the war had set wrong. Heroes from both factions stormed to the Temple of the Jade Serpent and slew the Shah of Doubt. Though even this great victory is not without some melancholy, Yulan's statue would need to be rebuilt faster than ever for her essence to survive. Why? Setting her needs aside, Yulan warned the champions of greater danger lurking in the shadows. The mists that cloaked Pandaria had parted for a reason. Dark forces were at work already further inland. The Shah were slowly but surely spreading their influence and corruption across the continent. Already they had begun to seize hold of the emotions of the Horde and Alliance. You know, all 5 of them! Amplifying their hatred and driving them towards bloody and unnecessary conflict. If the war in Pandaria was ever going to end, the Shah would need to be defeated. You know what, you're right, I'm sorry. 5 is exaggerative. Let's get specific. Taylor, Draenei Lady, Dwarf Guy, Elf Guy, I think. Hang on. And over there we've got Nazgrim, Goblin, Orc Lady, Forsaken Lady. That sounds about right. Even if I'm missing someone on both sides, that's 10 people across both sides. That's right, there was Human Sniper too. And Orc Dude. So I was right, I was missing one on each side. 10 people. This is the Horde and Alliance on Pandaria. Canonically, at this point in time. Already they had begun to seize hold of the emotions of the Horde and Alliance, amplifying their hatred and driving them towards bloody and unnecessary conflict. 10 people. Thank you, Walker, very, very much for the donation. Oh yeah, and of course there's the PCs with the lust for power. Oh my god. Just... Someone mentioned this in chat. You know what this really is? And I mean this. This is someone who has no respect for Pandaria. And so they either didn't put the time and effort to actually research the frickin' expansion, or, you know, deliberately are being dismissive about it. One of the two, or possibly both. I'm not saying this is golden. Just in general, the writers of this book do not give a crap about what was actually happening in one of the best expansions of the game. I'll put that towards Chained Echoes. Gravity Circuit. Kingdom Hearts block. You got it. Thank you, Walker, very, very much. Also, the VOD is already live on YouTube if you want to learn more about the move. You know, it's I know, right, Blade Javel? Like, how hilariously wrong would this team be about summarizing FF14? So then this guy showed up with this giant ass, okay? And juicy. Ugh. And the Warrior of Light consumed by lust. Oh my god. Okay, so long after the death of the Emperor Xiao Hao. Yes, I did. 1 second. You had a great lust for that juicy ass. Long after the death of Emperor Xiao Hao, the Shah began to strain against the cages of the great ruler had built to hold them. For centuries, they feasted upon negative emotions of Pandaria's native inhabitants, slowly regaining their strength. No, they freaking didn't! It's an entire thematic point that the Pandarians themselves are absent those emotions, and that's damaging them internally and culturally, you idiot! To prevent the Shah from re-emerging, Pandaren leaders taught their young to control their negative emotions. Unfortunately, becoming embroiled in the war with the Horde and Alliance ended any hope of the Pandaren keeping the Shah dormant. With each passing day, the Sha grew stronger until they could no longer be contained. Each of the 7 Sha were fueled by negative emotions: doubt, anger, hatred, despair, fear, violence, and pride. The Sha of Pride was the only emotion Xiao Hao never fully defeat. Its lingering influence drove him to cloak Pandaria in the mists and hide the continent away from the wider world. The young Prince Anduin had been on quite the journey since his failed voyage. He was first found by Ren Whitepaw and his daughter Lena, who had valiantly saved him from Hosen aggressors. His Pandaran rescuers regaled him with legends of a mystic valley deep within the continent known as the Vale of the Eternal Blossoms. Much has been said about the waters of this legendary vale, how they made the crops in the Valley of the Four Winds grow to enormous size, how they held powers to heal and rejuvenate even the dying. After seeing how waters from one of the Vale's tributaries healed Ren's injuries from the prior fight, Anduin became fascinated. SI-7 agents sent by Varen eventually located Anduin and offered him safe passage. Against his will, even after he protested. But the prince refused to return. He had been intrigued by the Pandaran legends. And then cast mind control on the dwarf, Sully, I think was his name, to get away. If the tales of the Vale of the Eternal Blossoms proved true, its waters would be an invaluable resource for all Azeroth. Anduin gave his father's agents the slips and set out on a journey across Pandaria. It was in these wanderings that he was captured by Nazgrim's forces, which the Lucky Prince later escaped amidst the battle at Serpent's Heart. After fleeing into neutral Pandaran territory, he continued on to Zoo's Watch and then the Temple of the Red Crane, determined to find the legendary Vale. Speaking of, go ahead and head over this way. Back when Anduin was... Southwest of the Jade Forest. Hey, they're actually going to the Krasarang Wilds next. In the Krasarang Wilds, a mysterious and inexplicable lethargy had taken hold of the people of Zoo's Watch. I'm going a little bit too far south. Leaving them solemn and hopeless. When champions of the Horde and Alliance intervened to cure their ailment, they found themselves faced with creatures derived from the Shah's power. After fending off these foes, the people of the Zoo's Watch reported that their courier... Are you going to leave out the entire thing? Okay, I'm going to forgive you a little bit for this, but I feel the need to point this out. So here's Zoo's Watch right here, okay? It's this place right in front of us. And there's a Hosen here, okay? His name's Ken Ken. He's cool. It's this guy right here. Say hello, Ken Ken. Hello. So, Ken Ken here, he heard an old, basically an old Hosen's child story about how when you're feeling sad, you make a mask to help you out. And he remembered the specific method to make that mask. So one of the quests is to wander around here, and yeah, here's all the people just lying around, dying. One of the quests here is to make versions of these masks, which are carefully crafted in a specific manner, to give to these people, which then excise the Shah from them. This is interesting because this is a fascinating world-building point, because many years before this, the Monkey King, who is his own thing, is probably a Loa at this point, let's be honest, actually came up with exactly that thing, the mask, which was carefully crafted to be ridiculous. Magically ridiculous, in such a way that it would excise specifically the Shah of Despair. Because you can't be despairing when you're... right? And so Ken Ken here, using a child's tale, actually managed to craft a real magical artifact which actually worked to remove Shah of Despair from the Pandaran. And that's the only thing that saved Zoo's Watch. I'm sorry, that's good writing. That's smart, that's interesting, that's engaging, that makes sense in universe, and that's got a wonderful thematic irony to it. Forgive me for sharing. So, further into the Krasarang Wilds. It also shows the Hosen as being positive, whereas they've been almost universally negative up till this point of the story. Leaders Tyrande Whisperwind of the Alliance and Bane Bloodhoof of the Horde had received visions of a great and powerful light hidden somewhere in the wilds of Pandaria. Lorekeeper Veldrin of the Night Elves expedition sought to investigate the old fable he'd read about the pools of youth, thinking it might explain the nature of Tyrande's visions. Ancient scrolls told of a long-lost Mogu holy site filled with pools of light that had restorative powers. Is it sad that I can point to these spots by memory? Is that pathetic? No, it's not. I don't have that kind of doubt, ironically. Anything that anybody studies to an extent will be able to do what I'm doing right now. I bet almost every one of you in chat, there's at least one thing that you're really, really, really into. And it's simply because of iteration and practice. You could point to say, hey, there's the pool I was just talking about, right there. And you can just do that by sight. I don't even have the interface on. I can just navigate that by sight. Of course I can. I've studied the crap out of this game. Right? Maybe it's something professional. Maybe it's something a hobby. You get it. A long-lost Mogu holy site filled with pools of light that had restorative powers. It is said that the Mogu who drank from its waters were granted life everlasting. Most of the Night Elves thought it unlikely that these pools were connected to Tyranda's visions, but Veldrin felt these pools of youth presented too great a promise to ignore, particularly given that the Night Elves had lost their cherished immortality, a plot point they keep forgetting about. Veldrin thus traveled to Pandaria thinking to pursue the pools and put the matter to rest. However, he sprang a Mogu trap, which landed the expedition in a magical prison. Actually, if I go there right now, I might be able to see them in the prison. Let's go check that out really quick. The book better mention Disco, or I'm going to be pissed. Now, I'm not as clear on where the Alliance camp is. It should be, like, right around here, though. I might have already passed it. Yeah, where are we at? Where are we at? Yeah, I feel like this is it. Right here. Maybe. Yep, nope, there it is. Memory. Ah, damn, they're broken out. Well, anyways, if you show up here early and haven't done the story yet, then they're all frozen in place. Anyways, moving on. So. Fortunately, for the party, they were rescued by Alliance adventurers who helped Veldrin discover the pools of youth, though they were not what he had been promised. The pools could not grant life, they could only transfer life from one entity to another. Nevertheless, Veldrin collected a sample of the waters for further research. Across the wilds, leaders of the Horde had different interpretations of similar visions. Sunwalker Desco... It's right over here, by the way. I love this, by the way. There's the Horde camp. There's the Alliance camp. They're literally in visual range of each other. Right there. Boom. Anyways, sorry. I'm amused by that. Sunwalker Desco led a devout order of Tauren warriors to Pandaria after the group experienced dreams of a peaceful valley of golden blossoms. His expectant wife, Lisa, had even seen the path they might follow, which led deep into the Krasarang wilds. Okay, for those of you aware of the geography, why would you go through the Krasarang wilds to get to the frickin' Golden Vale? For those of you not aware of the geography here, the northern end of the Krasarang wilds is a giant-ass cliff! It's even worse than a normal cliff, because it's like cliff, and then there's a freaking edge. It's a lip cliff. It's Anyways, moving on. Sorry, just moving on. Her visions, she needs to get her GPS fixed. As they explored the hilly jungle, the Tauren and Night Elf factions watched each other suspiciously, nearly came to blows when each side felled the other's scout, though they never entered all-out battle. Both sides had more pressing matters to contend with. The jungle was filled with dangerous creatures and hostile Mogu, who dodged the expeditions at every step. Both factions... Here, let's get this on camera. Both factions started to suffer major losses. There's Desco right there, actually. Despite his best efforts, Desco's wife passed away at childbirth, and he lost another friend in battle against the Mogu. I'm sorry, but I have to point out something the book's skipping over because it's one of the more subtle plot points in, like, the whole game. In fact, I know a lot of people never figured this out. So, the Alliance are here to find out about the pool, right? And so they study the pool, and they look at the pool, and they find out it's a pool of transference, not a pool of healing. Makes sense. But the thing is, the Horde never study the pool. Instead, that guy over there, the Pandaren, you see? I can't actually remember his name. What's his name? King Bramblestaff over there. He heard a story about a healing pool. So without knowing what the pool does, you as the Horde player have a quest to go grab that water and give it to the woman giving birth. And it's a pool of life transference. Her children live and she dies. What do you think happened? Pandaria is great. It's going to score so well. I'm so looking forward to it. Amidst the same battle, Lorekeeper Veldrin lost his daughter. The remaining expeditionary forces realized that their only hope for survival lay in cooperation. It's skipping like the entire zone. Jesus. Joining forces, they faced down the Mogu and rescued members of their parties who had been captured, agreeing to abandon any further thoughts of bloodshed between them. Neither side ever found the source of the mysterious visions that drew them to the wilds, but they still might escape them together. Upon retrieving his daughter's body, I'm surprised they mentioned this part, Veldrin drank from the waters, transferring the entirety of his life force to his daughter, dying so that she could live. While both sides tended to their dead, champions bid farewell to these expeditions because shortly before their meeting, the heroes had discovered the body of a courier in Zoo's watch that had been dispatched to the Temple of the Red Crane. As the heroes continued on to deliver the courier's message to the temple, they were met with a flood of refugees. There's the temple right there. Who urged the champions onward. A dark energy had taken home of the temple. It was home to one of the August Celestials, Chi-Ji. The chaos of the war had allowed the Shah of Despair to escape from its prison and possess Chi-Ji himself. They crossed paths again with Prince Anduin and heroes from both the Horde and Alliance. You're going to hear a lot of that, by the way. In fact, actually, Anduin should be like right up here. Where am I? Yeah, I might be a little bit off. I'm too far south. I'm also staring at like half the screen because this book is so huge. Why is this book so huge? Where am I? Okay, this way. There we are. Is he here? He is! Hey, there's Anduin, right there. Boop. Anyways. Quite a few Bopaniques. They crossed paths once again with Prince Anduin, and heroes from both the Horde and the Alliance rallied the Pandaren defenders and charged into the Temple of the Red Crane, which is just right... We were actually just there. Right up there. Right over there. In combining forces, they narrowly managed to defeat the Shah, freeing Chi-Ji from its influence. Actually, this is the easiest of all the Shah fights. No joke. The Shah and its threat presented were put to rest, but at cost to many lives. Brave Alliance, Horde, and Pandaren heroes lay dead. This Shah had been tougher to vanquish than the last. No, it hadn't. But these two ancient evils were now defeated. Still, far to the west, a more common threat to the Pandaren was beginning to wake. Dun, dun, dun. Like, even the later quest one we fight, which is Hatred specifically, in the Townlong Steppes, is a harder fight than Despair here. I actually like the Hatred fight, unironically, but it's also pretty heavily scripted, so that might be part of why. Anyways, hey, check it out, my favorite zone. Ooh, favorite zone. As the Alliance and Horde continued to move inland, they encountered the peaceful Valley of the Four Winds. This lush pastoral land served as Pandaria's breadbasket. The Pandaren farmers lived quiet lives, spending their days in the company of abundant crops and warm sunshine. And a whole lot of manual labor, but we're not going to talk about that. With the bountiful valley not entirely free from conflict, because to the west of it was the Dread Wastes. Hang on, really quick, just check it out. Check it out. Look at that farmland. Oh, look at it. Look at it. Listen, nothing turns me on as much as good farmland. Since the very foundation of Pandaria, the Dread Wastes had been the native land of the Mantid, insectoid people who traced their lineage from and worshipped the old gods. Every 100 years, a massive generation of Mantid would hatch, driven by instinct to kill and feed. Their empress would send them outward into Pandaria to sate these urges in hopes that the weak would die and the strong would survive. Yeah, let's just give away one of the biggest plot points of the entire freaking expansion here! I'm sorry. Have you played Pandaria? Have you played this amazing expansion? One of the... Let's talk about narrative for a second. there's a couple of types of stories, and obviously they're not all the story types, but one of the story types is the mystery, right? What's going on? You know, it introduces something, but you don't know why it's happening. And if it's a well-constructed mystery, that can be engaging, that can be interesting. You could ponder, why is this happening? And as the game or book or show or movie or whatever is doing, it slowly kind of develops and proceeds its way through here. So, for example, if you remember, the Mantid are first introduced as we're going through the Valley of the Four Winds and discussed briefly. And they mentioned the idea that the Mantid are attacking, but they're off-tempo. Why are they off-tempo? And then we get a little bit further in, and we find out that the Mantid have been attacking in several ways. For example, when we get to Kunlai, we're getting attacked by a ton of Yongle. Why are the Yongle attacking? Because the Yongle themselves were displaced by the Mantid. Why are the Mantid attacking? And it keeps coming up. There's a lot of quests in a lot of zones, pretty much from here onwards, that all kind of build up to this point. What the hell's going on with the Mantid? Until we finally reach the Dread Wastes and start doing the Klaxi quest chain. At which point we find out a little bit more about what the Mantid thing is, the cycle of violence as a way to try and cull their numbers and increase their power as is per their chaotic nature, as representations of chaos given flesh. But also that they're off-tempo because the Shaw of Fear is there. And all of that stuff is great, awesome, wonderful build-up that I just gave away. Sorry about that. But the point is, this doesn't do that. Anyways, moving on. In ancient times, Lei Shen, the Thunder King, who is being talked about more in every section that isn't his, ordered the construction of the Serpent's Spine, a barrier that he forced the Pandaran of the Valley to build along the length of its western border. This wall took generations to engineer, but in the end, the spine stretched far beyond the valley itself across the entire continent. It's a giant wall to stop creatures that fly. With the cover of the wall, the people of the valley managed to ward off the Mantid threat time and time again, but with each defeat, the Mantid who survived grew stronger and wiser. The strongest warriors were preserved in amber by their Klaxi. These paragons were kept in stasis for times of great need, or a raid boss in a pinch. The Horde and Alliance arrived in Pandaria some 90 years into the Mantid's 100-year cycle. It should have been a decade before the next invasion began, but already swarms of creatures had begun climbing over the Serpent's Spine, threatening the Pandaran. The relatively inexperienced locals would have no chance at fending off the Mantid attacks on their own. However, with the help of heroes from the Horde and Alliance, are we just... Oh my god. Oh my god. With... I'm sorry. With help of heroes from the Horde and Alliance, Pandaran Brewmaster Chen Stormstout rallied the local Pandaran into an effective fighting force. With the added assistance from a small contingent of the Shadowpan and the Psalmwalker and the Night Elf expeditions, Chen and his Rantag militia succeeded in halting the invasion. Despite the victory, all remained concerned about the fate of Pandaria. No one understood why the Mantid had swarmed early, or if it was connected to the Shah escaping from their prisons. Hint, hint! I'm sorry. Do you realize that the entirety of the Valley of the Four Winds has just been summarized by this half page right here? Now I know what you're saying. Nobody cares about the Valley of the Four Winds. I'm just... It's okay. There are 3 paragraphs about the brewery. Which is right there, speaking of which. After reaching Pandaria's coast, Lili and Chen Stormstout forged a path inland, searching for signs of their family ties. I know, Corey Fox! Sorry. Remember oh god, what are they called? The vermin. The rabbit people. Who are planting farming tools because they think that's how you make more farming tools. Anyways. Eventually, they found what they were looking for in the Valley of the Four Winds inside a brewery. Oh my god, that's 2 sentences! The entire quest chain of Lili and Chen, which is the MSQ, by the way, for this zone, which covers the entire zone from the far east end all the way here to the storms. If you're not familiar with the geography, we are way on the west end of the zone here, right? So, like, we started way way over there, and we do up there, then we go over there, then we go over there, then we go to that farmstead, then we go over to this, like, brewery thing, then we go to this town, we do the thing up here with the farmlands, and then we go all the way over here, and then we get to the brewery. 2 sentences. 2! They eventually found what they were looking for inside a sprawling, chaotic brewery. For generations, the Storm Stout Brewery had been renowned as one of the best brewers in all Pandaria, but in recent years, the Storm Stout family had fallen on hard times. No, they hadn't! Up until Chen's arrival on the continent, only one Storm Stout had remained able-bodied enough to continue working its day-to-day operations. That's not true! That's actually a lie! The whole reason that the brewery is under charge of... And this is in the dungeon, too, by the way, if you pay attention to the dialogue. The only reason the brewery is having issues right now is because the rest of the Storm Stouts, in reaction to the increased Mantid threat, just left to go over here into the Dread Wastes, and you freaking find them there and help them. They're an entire quest hub, for God's sakes. Uncle Gao over here even mentions how pissed off he is that we can't all be heroes. Some of us have to take care of the brewery. He's got that... An incompetent and bumbling old man named Uncle Gao. Gao's mismanagement? He's running a brewery by himself, you asshole! Gao's mismanagement had allowed the brewery to be overrun by hosen brutes and aggressive pests known as vermin. After reconnecting with his uncle, Chen decided to help restore the brewery to its former glory. With our help, Chen chased off the hosen and the vermin. He was able to lend his brewmaster skills, cultivated and honed from his many travels, to the task of setting the place right. With order restored by 3 people, Chen and Lily stayed for a time in the valley while they worked on the brewery's repairs. This is how they found and inadvertently defended the region from the Mantid swarm. Thank you for the sub, Techno's World. I know, Dream Whisperer. Like, I'm sorry, imagine you're one of the writers who wrote those quest chains, right? And then there's this, right? I'm sorry, this is insulting. And I'm just someone who really likes the story of WoW. I can't imagine, if someone did this kind of a take on the Final Fantasy 1 rewrite, or on like the frickin' Robot War or something else I've written, I would be angry about that. I would be hurt by that. This is the official record that they're putting the stamp on and saying, here you go. What is this, Disney? Thank you, Techno's World, for the sub. Much appreciated. Always. Thank you. I'll put that towards dealer's choice. Oh my god. So anyways, we're done. We're actually done with this entire zone. I'm actually kind of shocked by this. They just did this so dirty. I'm sorry, these are some of my favorite quests. Do you remember how it's so brilliant gameplay-wise, too? Do you remember when Lily becomes an NPC escort that's walking with us and gives the quest chains that send you to the other quest hubs? She's a mobile vector quest. Do you know how cool that is? Do you know how smooth that makes the leveling experience? Do you know how intuitive that is to guide you to where all the content is in this zone? That's awesome! No, it's not even mentioned. It's not even mentioned by a single, more than a single sentence. Sorry, 2 sentences. Oh my god. Yeah, exactly, Maverick. Again, this is like, I would already be pissed about this, but the remix just came out and has been out for like, what, 2 months at this point? Maybe 1 month? I don't know. And yeah, Lily gives commentary on the quests. It's great. This is all very fresh in a lot of people's minds. Can I just say really quick that I'm actually gladdened that, you know, other people have been doing the lore of Pandaria, because I know a lot of people just hit dungeons and all that, but like, Learning that other people have been doing the quests of Pandaria again that's smile right there. This just came out like last week. All right. This just came out. Like, this is very recent. Oh my god. Okay, so we're just skipping ahead to Kunlai. Pretty good zone too. I mean, it's Pandaria. All the zones are good. Like the only mid zone I would say, right off the top of my head, we'll see if the review carries through with this. The only mid zone I would say would be Townlong Steppes, and honestly, it's kind of a continuation of Kunlai, so that kind of makes sense. Thank you, DZ Maven. Much appreciate. I was not expecting to get this worked up about just reading this stupid book. I really wasn't. What in God's name? Yeah, remember, this zone is part of the overall Shaw of Fear story arc. It is. It's a great story arc. It's builds, it has tension. Even when you finally go after the Shaw of Fear, you don't actually get him. You have to chase him. There's this whole finale. It's great. DC Maven is putting that towards Xenogears, Dragon Age 4. Oh, I forgot to do that. And the VRPG block. Boom. Okay. So now we're here. We've just jumped zones. Having suffered catastrophic injuries and losses during the battle at Serpent's Heart and the resulting fight with the Shaw of Doubt, the main forces of the Horden Alliance, 10 people, are evacuated to Beanon Village, which is right there. And known for having the finest healers in all of Pandaria, General Nazgrim and Admiral Taylor shared quarters, though their proximity only amplified their enmity towards each other. Still, they ordered their respective expeditions to halt their movements and build encampments as they licked their wounds. Despite their injuries, they were wasted no time trying to claim any advantage they thought the region might offer, and the Pandaren of Kunlai could prove powerful allies. The Pandaren needed assistance too. The nearby village of Westwind Rest had been destroyed in skirmishes of the Yongle. That's actually right up there. You can see the fire burning. As ancient cousins to the Taran people, actually the Yongle were the original Tarans, but I know you wouldn't remember that because that's the thing you wrote. The Yongle carried many of the Taran's features, though the Taran philosophy of peace stood in stark contrast to the Yongle's warlike society. Their constant conflicts with the other peoples of Pandaria saw them eventually migrate to the Townlong Steppes, right over there on the other side of the wall. This area north of where the Mantid dwell, not so close to be agitated or in great number outside their cycle. Here the Yongle's culture of glory and strength. The Yongle have no culture. They're a bad guy race. Let's just be honest about that. Was balanced against the external threats they faced. Not a single warrior among them could be spared in their ongoing struggle against the Mantid. Thus, the premature reawakening of the Mantid set the Yongle into a frenzy. By the hundreds, retreating Yongle fled into the Townlong Steppes, crossing the Serpent's Spine. As they made their way across western Pandaria, the Yongle laid waste to to Pandaren villages, pilfering their resources and slaughtering their inhabitants. Few of these roving groups even claimed swaths of territory in Kunlai. With the Mantid threat somewhat abated, the Pandaren saw an opportunity to push the Yongle back into the native Townlong Steppes. However, it was not a job they could do alone. With each faction desperate to win the neutral Pandaren to their side, both the Horde and the Alliance volunteered to help drive the Yongle back before launching attacks against Yongle occupied territories. After numerous bloody battles, they succeeded in pushing most of the Yongle raiders back to the Spine. Alongside Ban Bearheart and a small force of Shadowpan, these champions engaged in one final epic battle. Are they not even going to mention the beer launcher? The Beerapult? Crushing the remaining Yongle against the Oxgate. Thoroughly defeated, the surviving Yongle raiders slunk back to their lands. The battle for the Oxgate should have restored a sense of peace to Kunlai, but few could rest easy because the Pandaren noted that the Shadowpan, even the defenders of Pandaria, had failed to heed the request for reinforcements. Something was amiss. Meanwhile, while the Horde and Alliance waged war on the heights of Kunlai, Anduin Rin continued his search for the Veil of Eternal Blossoms. His journey led him to the Temple of the White Tiger, where Zwen, one of the August Celestials, resided. Unlike the other Celestials, Zwen did not guard over a prison of Shaw. Rather, he guarded access to the Veil itself, protecting its powerful waters from those with bad intent. That's why his temple is at the exact opposite end of the zone from the gate. Any who wish to see the Veil first had to prove themselves to him. Zuen was flanked by Ji the Harmonious, who led an ancient order known as the Golden Lotus. As agents of the August Celestials, the members of the Golden Lotus had long been tasked with protecting the Veil from corruptive or destructive influence. Determined to study the waters, Anduin presented himself before Zuen and Ji. He argued that despite the chaos the Horde and Alliance had brought to Pandaria, the people of both factions were ultimately good. They sought a betterment of the world to heal the wounds that had recently left conflicts on Azeroth. While Zuen and Ji contemplated the argument, Terenzu had also come to the temple to argue against Anduin. Terenzu believed firmly that the gates of the Veil should remain closed. Whatever their intentions, they had spread chaos and death across Pandaria. Their trespasses could not be easily forgiven, nor could Pandaria risk destruction at their hands. After considering both arguments, Zuen decided to put Anduin's words to the test. The outsider would choose champions to submit themselves to 3 trials. If they truly had good intentions, the task would be trivial. Zuen called forth manifestations of inner turmoil, challenging them to overcome conflict within their own hearts. Over the course of these trials, Zuen and Ji saw great passion and strength as well as scars from battles past. But it was the champions' capacity to right grievous wrongs that ultimately swayed the White Tiger. They passed Zuen's tests. And apparently we really, really hate, like, Varian for some reason. I don't know what that's all about. The August Celestials declared that despite their flaws, the people of Pandaria might have something to learn from these outsiders after all. Zuen agreed to grant the outsiders entry to the Veil. Terenzu was furious, stormed away from the temple to return to the Shadowpan. He did not know that his anger fed off dark force, one stirring beneath his very feet. Dun dun dun, wow 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 wow. Notice they haven't mentioned the Grumbles at all yet, by the way. I know they're not really important to the game, but they're extremely important to the lore. I mean, I'm sorry, the Grumbles are why they beat the Mogu. Let's just be blunt about that. So there's the gate. Thousands of years ago, after the fall of the Thunder King, the Mogu had moved their imperial capital to the Vale of Eternal Blossoms, ruling over all of Pandaria from Mogushan Palace, which is actually right over... a little bit more to the right. There, you can see it in the distance right there. Their leaders had abused the power of the Vale's waters, utilizing them to aid their conquest of the peaceful Pandaren. Following the successful Pandaren Revolution, the August Celestials had sealed the Vale. You could just climb over, ensuring that nobody could abuse its resources again. With their victory at Zuen's trial, Anduin's allies had good reason to celebrate, but now they were also war-weary and exhausted. Simply getting to the Vale had been a trial, and now, alongside the Golden Lotus, they would be responsible for its defense. Soon enough, the ancient enemies of the Pandaren took note of the Vale's reopening and moved to challenge its protectors. A Mogu warmonger named Zhao Jin, the Bloodletter, had been gathering a large force at the Mogushan Palace for some time, plotting to claim the sacred waters and restore the Mogu Empire. This is where you're putting the dungeon? Here? Zhao Jin's plot would not go unnoticed. His growing army quickly drew the attention of the Golden Lotus, who sent out champions, who destroyed the crap out of him. Blah, 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 blah. I'm actually going to skip by this. This is stupid. So we did it. Whoa, we did the dungeon. Woo! For centuries... Hang on. Now we got to... Meanwhile, after having completed one dungeon... Hey, we can actually see the other dungeon from here. Do you see it? Right up there. For centuries... I was not a fan of Volume 3, but so far this is worse. We're only one expansion in. We'll see how much... We still got to cover Shadowlands. For centuries, the Shadowpan had stood guard over their sacred monastery and the 3 imprisoned Shah who lay beneath violence, hatred, and anger. In times past, keeping the Shah confined was well within the strength and skill of the Order, but the weight of so many repeated conflicts weighed on the hearts of all in Pandaria, including the Shadowpan. Even Terenzu was having trouble controlling his frustration. The 3 Shah knew there would never be a better opportunity to escape. As soon as Terenzu returned to the monastery from his failed entreaty to Zuen, the Shah summoned their strength and burst forth from their prisons. While the Shah of Anger fled to the temple to go ravage the countryside, and you can see one of his spawn points right there at the top of the screen. The Shah of Violence and Hatred remained to destroy the Shadowpan. Violence bent its will towards the destruction of the monastery, while the hatred wormed its way to Taranzul's weakened heart, turning the Shadowpan leader against his own people. It was time to do a dungeon. Oh, too close, too close. There we go. Hey, look, check it out. Monastery. You can actually see a decent amount of it inside, too. It's kind of cool how much of it is rendered in there. Good dungeon. I mean, this is Pandaria. Pretty much every dungeon's a good dungeon in Pandaria. please. Unfortunately... Wait, sorry. Fortunately... You might think that's just a misreading, but actually, it's like, fortunately, and then 2 paragraphs down, it's unfortunately. I'm not actually joking. Fortunately, Ban Bearheart was suspicious of the Shadowpan's absence from the battle at the Ox Gate, and he marched his own contingent, including the champions of the Horde and the Alliance forces, directly to the monastery. Together, they charged inside and defeated the Shaw of Violence. Fearing its own demise, the Shaw of Hatred released its hold on Taranzu and fled. While grateful to be released, the Shadowpan leader was equally ashamed of the chaos that Hatred had worked through him. Ridden with guilt, he left his beloved monastery behind and set off to the town-long steps, determined to defeat the Shaw of Hatred. But while the Shadowpan surveyed the damage to their home and their order, anger was still wreaking havoc. So, we went and killed it. I'm sorry, that's barely a joke. What it actually says is, champions of the Alliance and Horde clashed with the raging monstrosity in heated battles across the region, and together they slowly managed to wear the creature down and finally vanquish it. So I guess that's their explanation for the multiple spawn points. I don't know. Unfortunately, the rest of Pandaria remained under threat, although the Yongle had been driven back beyond the Serpent's Spine. Oh, hey, look, I can see the beer launcher. There it is. Check it out. There's the beer launcher. So you put a giant beer keg in and shakonk. Then you light it on fire. In truth, the Yongle had fallen under the influence of the Shaw of Hatred, who escaped the grasp of the Shadowpan and was still at large. As the bloody fighting across the border wore on, the minds of the Yongle became consumed by hatred, who barely escaped the grasp of the Shadow... I'm sorry, what? They say consumed with hatred twice? In like 2 sentences? Oh my god. They began to turn on one another, indiscriminately slaughtering both friend and foe. To calm the Yongle frenzy, champions from the Alliance and Horde agreed to cross the Serpent's Spine and enter the town-long steps. The task proved more daunting than they could have possibly imagined. As they escaped, as they pushed the Yongle back, the heroes uncovered signs of mantid attacks. It seems the insectoids were regrouping, testing their military right for renewed assault. The Mantid posed a threat to all of Pandaria, particularly if they controlled the town-long steps. Ban Bearheart sent runners to Taranzu at the Galran battlefront with word of these developments, but Taranzu had already been acutely aware of the danger. The Shadowpan outpost was stretched thin. Guards went days without sleep. You remember one line from a single quest, but you don't remember... Okay. And they were slowly losing ground to the Mantid forces there. It was clear the Shaw of Hatred would have to wait while the Mantid were dealt with. The Horde and Alliance began marching south to the border of the Dread Wastes. The sight of reinforcements was welcome to the exhausted Shadowpan, though it did not assure victory. Yes, it did. A fierce and pitched battle ensued for the front, which saw the combined force of Shadowpan, Horde, and Alliance using every resource just to maintain their footing. For a moment, it looked as if the tide was turning against the Mantid, and the warriors stood a chance at storming right into the border of the heart of the Dread Waste itself. However, unfortunately, the Mantid prepared a surprise, one which would halt the heroes' advance. Deep within the tunnels, the Mantid had uncovered a Kuiperite worm, Norvicus? Rather than destroy it, the Mantid had decided to unleash it in combat. Just as the Shadowpan began to settle their blockade, Norvicus took to the field. The Pandarians' roughshod blockade bent and buckled against the weight of the worm, but the barrier did not break. Didn't you just say it? Heroes from the Horde and Alliance redoubled their efforts on the Beast, drawing its attention away from the border. After a long and grueling fight, no, it wasn't, the champions managed to slay Norvicus. I'm actually too far south. With the border secure, Taranzul was finally able to turn his attention back towards the town-long steps and his real goal, eliminating the Shaw of Hatred. Oh, sorry. Here we go. Here's the front. Yeah, after a short and simple fight. Doesn't have the same ring to it, does it? The Shaw could sense that Taranzu was coming for it. It barricaded itself deep within the last remaining Mantid bastion in the town-long steps, a Kapari tree known as Sikfes. The great tree proved insufficient to repel Taranzu and his allies, and after wiping out the Mantid, they stormed into the Sikfes lair and engaged the Shaw in battle. Taranzu himself led the charge, and together with the allies destroyed the cruel being that had once taken hold of his heart. With the Shaw of Hatred defeated, the Shadowpan scouts were dispatched to the Dread Waste to investigate the source of the frenzy that had prematurely roused the Mantid. But back in the town-long steps, we headed to another dungeon. Just as with the Temple of the Red Crane and Shadowpan, the temple was set to fall under the influence of the Shaw, unless there was an intervention. Nuzao? God, I can never remember how to pronounce it. I actually looked it up for the Warcraft. Nuzao continued to guard... That sounds wrong. Nuzao? Urgh. Sentinels continued to guard the august celestial to whom they were sworn, but they would be overrun. The Shah of Fear... Oh, we're just giving that away now. Just after so much buildup. Freed of its shackles, had possessed the most commanding being he could find, the Mantid Grand Empress Shekzir. With the army of the Mantid completely under its control, the Shah grew even more powerful. The small force of Alliance and Horde champions, as well as the remaining Shadowpan, were no match for such a swarm. They would need an army of their own. But before anyone could even consider such a thing, they would have to establish a foothold within the Dread Waste. And there's the dungeon, which we talked about for like one sentence. There it is. Check it out. There's like the bridge they're building to go attack it. It's cool. It's a good dungeon. They're all good dungeons. Heroes from both factions returned to the Vale of Eternal Blossoms. The valley had been secured, but the Mantid were continuing to push against the gate of the setting sun on the Serpent's Spine, searching for any sign of weakness, including running into a bad texture. Bonk. By bolstering the Pandarians' defenses, the heroes gradually managed to push the Mantid away from the Serpent's Spine and establish a foothold on the other side of the wall. As the champions pushed their way to the waste, they happened upon a curious sight. One of the Mantid's Claxi... Was that it? One paragraph of the dungeon? Mantid's Claxi elders battled another Mantid. Heroes saved the elder, but had been mortally wounded. With his dying breath, he begged the champions to release a nearby Mantid who was encased in amber and provided them with the means to do so. To the surprise of all, both elder and preserved Mantid, Kilrook, the Windreaver, were a part of a Claxi faction that opposed the Grand Empress Shekzir. The Claxi were a council... Oh, I guess we'll go to the Claxi now. This is going so fast. The Claxi were a council of the Mantid's wisest leaders, stewards of their people's history and culture. Kilrook was a paragon, an elite warrior sworn for the good of the Mantid who preserved in Kypera army amber for times when they would be needed. God, I'm having trouble reading this now. He and his elders considered it their duty to depose the Empress after her reckless incursions beyond the Serpent's Spine. Mantid civilization itself was buckling under the weight of fighting a war on so many fronts. Casualties were mounting, and the Mantid could not afford to continue fighting. Kilrook was weak upon his awakening and desperate for allies, so swallowed his pride and joined forces with those invading his land, bringing them before the full Claxi Council, who were about to kill them all, it's worth noting. Many of the elders were hesitant to work with what they deemed the lesser races. However, the Claxi leader, Klaxivavor, really? Swayed his fellows, bade Kilrook direct the heroes to where they would be best of use in ending the swarm, reawakening the greatest of the Mantid warriors who lay preserved in amber all around the Dread Wastes. One by one, the champions roused these fabled warriors and called upon them to join the rebellion against the Grand Empress. Backed by this elite force, Horde champions charged into the Grand Empress's underground lair. Wow, and now we're up to the raid. Racing. So there's the raid. It's right there. After a long battle through the Heart of Fear itself... Is it seriously? One sentence? Oh my god, it really is. After a long battle through the Heart of Fear itself, these champions successfully deposed the Mantid ruler. That's it. There's the raid. Unfortunately... This is a good raid, too. Unfortunately, they failed to capture the Shah of Fear. A malevolent entity... malevolent entity saw that it was outmatched and fled from its Mantid stronghold before it could be contained. The Alliance knew there would be no peace in Pandaria while the Shah roamed free, so their champions tracked the creature through the Dread Wastes, over the Serpent's Spine, across the Valley of the Four Winds, back to the Jade Forest, into a small region called the Veiled Stair. I'm not going to fly over there for like one paragraph. I'm sorry. It's that way. Here, have something cool looking. Located at the top of the Veiled Stair was the Terrace of the Endless Spring. This peaceful monastery served as a place of remembrance for Emperor Xiao Hao. It was from here that Xiao Hao gave up his physical form and severed Pandaria from the rest of the world. Ironically, the ones who now came to defend it would be the Outsiders. Alliance champions stormed the ancient monastery, forced to fight the protectors of the Endless. Bit by bit, they cleansed the place of its corruption by killing everyone there, until they faced down... That's not true. We actually don't kill two people there. We kill the protectors! Just in the face. Until they faced down the Shah itself. Thus, fear fell to the might of the Alliance heroes. With the death of Fear, 6 of the Shah had been cleansed. Only Pride remained, but Pride was cleverer than its siblings. While the other Shah had recklessly attacked temples, Pride remained hidden, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Meanwhile, while the champions of the whole... Where's this going? Okay. So now we have like 3 pages, 4 pages, 5 pages, 6, 7 pages. Oh my god. Yeah, it's about 7.5 pages dedicated to 5.1. I don't mind that. 5.1 is one of the best patches in the entire game. But like, wow. After like entire zones get like half a page or a few paragraphs, that's a shift. Okay, so while the champion of the Horde, champions, excuse me, that's a plural, of the Horde and Alliance traveled Pandaria, aiding its people in fighting the Shah, the Mantud, and the Yongle, politics in the Rita world continued apace. Seeing the Horde firmly established in Pandaria, Garrosh intended to seize the moment and embarked on a journey personally to lead the Horde into Pandaria's interior. Accompanied by his closest allies, Garrosh made landfall on a small island off the coast of the Krasarang Wilds. He then ordered his forces to build a massive fortress on top this spit of land that he would call Domination Point. The construction of this hostile fortress furthered concerns with many in the Horde. Vol'jin, who was leader of the Darkspear Trolls, expressed his concerns to the Warchief directly, that Garrosh's aggression and idle threats would only further alienate the Pandaren from the Horde and from its cause. Is he here right now? No. Okay. Could have been. Isn't. Hang on. His words were lost on the single-minded Warchief. Vol'jin had come to the Krasarang Wilds to keep the Warchief in check, believing he could do so by staying close to the leader rather than hiding away on the Echo Isles. Vol'jin knew that Garrosh suppressed direct opposition to his reign with brutal violence, but if the Darkspear Troll's presence in council might spare his people bloodshed, then direct opposition was worth the risk. Unfortunately for Vol'jin, Garrosh more than lived up to his reputation. The Warchief's elite guards escorted Vol'jin out of Domination Point on a mission to obtain a powerful weapon in their fight against the Alliance. Their efforts yielded the power Garrosh sought, Mogu flesh-shaping magic that had been used to create the Saurok race. First reference of the Saurok in this whole book, by the way. Vol'jin, we haven't mentioned the Grummles at all. Vol'jin denounced it as the darkest of magics and refused to be party to its use. With these words, Garrosh's minions leapt upon Vol'jin and brought the troll to within an inch of his death before a champion of the Horde intervened. You're welcome. Vol'jin urged the champion to tell the Warchief the chieftain was dead and stay close to Garrosh to learn his plans and find others sympathetic to rebellion. With this directive, Vol'jin and the champion parted ways. Having silenced his greatest critic, Garrosh moved to secure his power over the Horde. Without drastic action, the Trolls would discover what happened and seek to avenge their fallen leader, but Garrosh refused to let that happen. He ordered Horde troops to surround the Echo Isles, locking the Trolls within their own home. With the Darkspear contained, Garrosh briefly began to believe that no one in the Horde would ever dare to stand against him. However, unbeknownst to his Warchief or his subjects, Vol'jin had survived. Yes, we know. You said that one paragraph ago. I'm sorry. Do I need to teach you how to write? Is that a thing I need to do? Do I need to treat you like you're 15? Some ways downstream from Garrosh's assassination attempt, Pandaren cubs found Vol'jin's half-drowned body floating in a river near Benon. Chen retrieved his old friend and patched him up as best he could. Knowing it was best to conceal Vol'jin's survival, and once the troll was stable enough to travel, Chen would take the unconscious leader to the Shadow Pan Monastery, the only neutral organization with the resources to hide a person of Vol'jin's stature. He knew Terran Zu had no affection for Garrosh and would happily take his refuge into his care. But all of this meant for the Darkspear Trolls and the wider tensions, Chen could not stay. Vol'jin's natural ability to heal was impeded by the poison of the Assassin's Blade. Also, Trolls don't have a natural ability to heal. It's bargained for with Loa, you idiot! Excuse me. While the poison was removed... It's true, the Trolls are not innately regenerative. That regeneration comes from their bargains with Loa. Like, it's a coming-of-age thing. Since his injury, the Darkspear chieftain only roused long enough to utter 2 words, "Find Thrall." After helping to calm the elemental chaos of the Cataclysm, the former warchief had settled into the quiet life of the Valley of Trials. He had been content acting as a leader in his small community, mentoring prospective young shamans. He and his life mate, Twitface, had even started a family. Vol'jin's message devastated Thrall. He cherished his new course, but could not stand by while Garrosh ruined the horde they had worked so hard to build. With a heavy heart, the former war chief traveled to the Echo Islands, the seeds of rebellion forming. Yeah, no, exactly, Kira White Noise. That's exactly why I brought it up. It feels like it's a nitpick, and it kind of is, but it demonstrates a lack of understanding of the setting you're writing for. Some years before the Horde and Alliance's landfall in Pandaria, Chen Stormstout had left his home on the Wandering Isle to explore the wider world. In his time abroad, he crossed paths with many of the Horde's leaders. Chen's travels eventually took him to the Echo Isles, where he met Vol'jin. Chen helped the Horde defend Vol'jin and his people from Kultiran invaders. After the threat was averted, Chen found reason to return to the Echo Isles several times, having met a kindred spirit in the determined young leader. They accompanied each other on hunts throughout the Isle, slaying powerful beasts and trading stories of their adventures. But however strong their friendship was, Chen's wanderlust could not be sated. With a heavy heart, Chen eventually left the Isles behind and continued his journeys. Until the moment he pulled Vol'jin from the riverbank, Chen never expected to see his old friend again. News of Vol'jin's disappearance spread quickly through the Horde. Garrosh was accustomed to isolating and chastising any who dared oppose him, but with this open act of treachery, he had not cowed, but rather empowered his detractors. Soon the Darkspear Trolls were not the only ones upset by the Warchief's betrayal. The Blood Elves and the Tauren felt increasingly moved to act, though other factions, including most of the Orcs and the Bilgewater Goblins, remained steadfast in their loyalty to him. For his part, Garrosh was unconcerned with the way the Horde was beginning to fracture. His sole focus was the fact that I'm flying in the wrong direction. That's a very important thing to be careful about. His sole focus remained a quick, decisive victory over the Alliance. To achieve this, he needed an edge, something to... The who, Mira says? Something to empower his soldiers. It was at this moment he learned of the Divine Bell. In 170th year of the Thunder King's reign, Korun spellweavers crafted an ancient enchanted bell. The tolling of this bell would fill the ringer's allies with anger and their enemies with doubt. The Thunder King used it to send his warriors into a battle frenzy, making any who resisted them flee in terror. In order to defeat the Mogu, members of the Pandaren crafted the Harmonic Mallet, which held the power to nullify the bell's magical cacophony, transforming its hideous noises into harmonic notes. And there's the Alliance Town, right over there. The location of the mallet had been lost to time, but the Divine Bell had been located by the Horde. Up in Kun Lai, actually. Unfortunately for Garrosh, an Alliance adventurer had learned of its location from the Horde's same source, and reported this back to the Alliance. Night Elf Sentinels were dispatched, alongside specialists from the Explorers League to recover it. They removed the bell from its resting place and spirited it off to the Night Elven capital of Darnassus. Far from the war, within the bounds of the Alliance city, they believed the bell would be safe. They were wrong. No, it actually says that. Garrosh would not let the walls of any city keep him from what he desired. He knew the leaders of the Blood Elves, Lorthamar Theron, had recently met with Varian Rin about changing allegiances. In these two problems, Garrosh saw a single brilliant solution. He directed a small Horde contingent, including Blood Elf and Sunreavers, to infiltrate Darnassus, kill Sentinels, and steal the bell. With some effort, the Horde succeeded in their task, thanks in part to magic which could bypass the arcane wards around the bell. But the victory came at great diplomatic cost to the Blood Elves. The Sunreavers had made their home in the neutral city of Dalaran, where mages of all races and factions were welcome. Despite Garrosh's aggression, the Archmage Jaina Proudmoore had allowed the Horde-aligned Sunreavers a seat within the city because she believed they respected the city's neutrality. Even though members of the Order had strayed from this path before, the Sunreavers made a good faith effort to atone. With the infiltration of Darnassus, several Sunreavers amongst the Horde forces that had broken or bypassed wards that Jaina herself put into place. In her view, the actions of these few meant the Blood Elves could not be trusted to remain neutral. She moved to expel the Blood Elves living in Dalaran and align with the Magicratic nation more closely with the Alliance. Her actions played right into Garrosh's hands, as what followed withered any budding affection the Blood Elves felt for the Alliance. The Blood Elves refused to leave Dalaran quietly. Some of them had made their home, livelihood, and community there. No one could order them to abandon it. So, as the Is it really? Well, thank you for telling me. Hug.
1 minute.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna wait.
Okay, I can wait a few minutes. You can go upstairs if you want.
What is that?
I don't know.
I can...
It is a fire dragon, yes. Well, I don't know. What is that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
What is
I don't know anything. Oh. What are you doing, baby?
that?
That is Windman, specifically.
What is that?
That's Iceman.
What is that?
That is Cutman.
What is that?
That's Flame Man.
Oh, that's Spider-Man.
Oh, careful, careful, careful.
What is that?
Has it been pulled out? Oh my gosh, it has. That's interesting. Okay. No. Come with me. I'll be right back. The Blood Elves refused to leave Dalaran quietly. Some of them had made their home, their livelihood, and their community there. No one could order them to abandon it. So, as the Sunreavers rejected her edict, the city's authorities, as well as the Alliance-aligned Silver Covenant, combed the city, forcing the Blood Elves into exile. Anytime the Blood Elves resisted, brutality followed, amplified by the Silver Covenant's innate hatred for the Sunreavers. As the violence ratcheted up, innocent blood elven families were forced to flee through the sewer systems. Peace only returned after Lorthamar Theron ordered the remaining members of his faction to evacuate. I can't help but notice it doesn't mention any of the killings here. It just mentions violence. Still, the purging of Dalaran is a messed up affair. Lorthamar was furious with Jaina, but also with Garrosh. The war chief had gone over Lorthamar's head and ordered his own people to help steal the Divine Bell. Garrosh's reckless decision had been the ultimate cause of this disastrous purge. It was unacceptable that such a leader could be allowed to remain in power. Lorthamar ordered his surviving Sunreavers to begin preparing for insurrection. With or without allies, the moment Garrosh showed weakness, the Blood Elves would strike. The war chief had made himself two powerful new enemies in the Blood Elves and the Dark Patrols, but it would be all worth it for the Divine Bell, which he could use to drive his armies to unrelenting conquest. With Pandaria under his control, no one would dare to stand against him. Garrosh amassed his Korokron warriors at the Emperor's Reach in the northern Kunlai summit. With all his greatest champions in one place, he would ring the bell. Then the frenzied fighters would begin the march across the continent. It seemed the only hope of stopping the war chief lay within the Harmonic Mallet. By this point, Anduin Wrynn had moved on from his pursuit of the Veil and reconnected with the Alliance forces, including his father. Now he turned his attention to thwarting the war chief's insidious plans. He and a group of Alliance champions ventured from the wilds of Pandaria and recovered the long-lost Harmonic Mallet. Wow, that's a summary. Which had been broken and scattered to prevent it from falling into Mocha position. Are you not even mentioning the Monkey King? Anduin and the other champions of the Alliance arrived at the Emperor's Reach ahead of the full Alliance advance, just as Garrosh was set to ring the bell. It seemed all was lost. However, the bell did not work as the legend said. Its noise did more than simply fill its listeners with fury. It infused them with the power of the Shaw, turning them into hideous beings of pure rage. Consumed by the bell's dark influence and unable to control themselves, Garrosh's soldiers clumsily smashed into the Alliance heroes. As these Shaw-infested warriors did battle with the Alliance, they cleared a path through the fray to the Divine Bell, allowing Anduin the chance to rush ahead. Though Anduin tried to dissuade the war chief from his campaign of violence, Garrosh was undeterred. He struck the bell once more, infusing his own blade master, Ishi, to fight for him. Overcome by the flood of the Shah's power and emotions, Ishi struck out at anything in the vicinity, forcing the others to put him down. Sensing his opportunity, Anduin nullified the bell's power with the Harmonic Mallet. Infuriated, Garrosh shattered the massive bell, burying Anduin in its heavy debris. Believing the young prince dead, Garrosh took his remaining forces and retreated. The Divine Bell had proven worthless, but he still managed to strike a blow at the Alliance by removing the heir to Stormwind. Right. That was all worth it, right? I mean, he lost the Blood Elves and he lost Dalaran and managed to screw with everything everywhere, but he got a bell that he didn't get to use at all. That's worth it, right? Following Garrosh's sudden departure, Alliance champions rushed to the ruins of the Bell, pulled Anduin from the rubble, who had barely managed to survive, though his body was broken. He would need good healers and a long rest to recover. Now, fortunately, very, very, very early, dinner is ready. I was hoping to at least finish Pandaria with this first session, but unfortunately, we've actually got quite a few pages left for that. There's Siege of Orgrimmar, yep, and there's the end of that. So, I'm going to go and chop off here. Tomorrow, at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will continue the reading of the Warcraft Chronicles Volume 4 and the Retcons of Doom. I'm your host, Christy Golden. And remember, Jaina and Calicos, OTP.